Hello, everyone. And oh my gosh, the guitar stands so far away. And welcome to a little channel we call Crushing Crisis. Do not adjust your screens. You are having a crisis. It is I, Crisis with a K, coming to you live from New Zealand with a surprise. I know, I was just on Near Mint Condition for 2 hours talking about Marvel's August solicits exclusively. So if you wanted to see what those are, head over to Near Mint Condition. It was chaos. It was one of the most chaotic streams ever. And it was with 4 of my favorite people to talk to in the world. So I enjoyed the chaos. But we have a little bit of unfinished business here on this channel, and also some business that you didn't even know I was planning to finish. So last week we had a marathon 4-hour stream where I talked about every option on the Tigereyes Near Mint Condition 13th annual Marvel Most-Wanted poll, and I only got down to Spider-Man. And many of you were very kind in saying you wanted to hear me talk about the rest of the titles. We're going to spend about 15 minutes here doing that. But then the primary thing we're going to do today is I'm going to reveal my ballot. Now, as of camera time, as of showtime, there's only a few hours left to vote. Voting closes at 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time, which is only about 2.5 hours from now. So you've got to go and vote. And at this point, I feel like I can talk about my ballot without influencing you all too much. Not that I think I'm going to influence you, but I always remember when it used to be the secret ballot and the rules where you could not say what you voted for. That was the rules back in the early years of the poll. So I not only am going to reveal my top 10. Oh no, that would be too easy. Have you been on this channel before? We don't do things easy here. I'm going to reveal to you my top 60, including maps for all of the books that I would put in my personal top 60. So this is like the Crisis parallel alternate universe version of what I think the top 60 should be on the Tigereyes poll, and which will be revealing the full top 60 in almost exactly a week from this very moment on Near Mint Condition. And if you think it's going to be all X-Men, you might be in for some surprises. So I just want to say hi to the faithful who figured out that I am streaming and are here already. John Parles, who is just, hyping me. And in the left streaming corner, he'll say your favorite monthly doesn't even make any sense and destroy DC continuity for every new generation of teenagers. It's crushing. Crisis Omnibo is here from across the ditch, as they say. James Abel, the human cerebro. I have to say, James, however much credit you think we're giving James for all the stuff that he does in the background, all of these shows, it's actually not enough. He has such a brain for the connective tissue between all these channels, between all these comic books, and it's really been fun to see him flex some mapping muscle and getting us ready for these polls. I really think that James should think about doing some more mapping as his own content. Georgie Chimchinov is here. Yes, the NMC stream is an appetizer. This could go 4 times as long as that. Max is here. You need to go to sleep, sir, but that's okay. That's okay. You can still be here. Taylor Made is here. Happy to be one of the first commenters and always happy to see you, especially with that Gambit profile picture. There may be some Gambit content in the stream. James Abel, of course, plugging the Tigereyes poll. You only have 2.5 hours left to vote. Was my like of dislike of John's my moment of crisis for today? No moment of crisis for today. I know I haven't done the new poll streams for a couple of weeks. That's just because I've been so busy, not just with the polls. Life has been a little kooky. We got right out of our school break back into school. And I think just coming back out of school break and having to catch up on polls and the poll and work stuff and other things in life, I just am like 2.5 weeks behind on polls. So the rule is always Crushing Crisis has to come first. That is the engine to all of this. So right now I'm working on catching up Crushing Crisis to the past couple of weeks of polls with my new releases posts. And once those new release posts are caught up, then I will be back doing polls. And we are going to catch up on the polls that I missed. So we might be kind of like a week behind for 2 weeks behind for a couple of weeks as I catch up on them. Patrick Borgold is here. X-Men by Austin. Don't joke about things unless you want me to seriously say them. Logan Wayne is here. More Crisis. Yay. Jason and Robin, 1996, top 60. Let's go. And Super Job, as promised, I would be back. And Power Girl, funny story, is one of the reasons I haven't been doing poll shows is I got to Power Girl number 20 and I just could not power through that book. And I know it's like 2.5 weeks ago now. And sometimes I just hit one book in my poll that I know in my brain I should skip, but I just keep bashing my head against I'm gonna read it. And that book for me was Power Girl number 20. Not even it's a bad comic, I just can't get into it, so I think I'm gonna have to skip it. And Eric Garza, new CK stream just in time as I'm about to crush a run. Well, I'll try to keep things nice and high energy for you on your run. So let me recap what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through the Tigereyes poll options that I didn't get to go through last week because a lot of people have been so cool and saying that I should have gone through them. We're spending 15 minutes tops on that, and that, yeah, I say. And then at the end of those 15 minutes, we're gonna go over my top 60. So let's jump in we left off last week with Spider-Man because I did my marathon high-speed version of solo characters, which you can go back and listen to. And of course, we went out through all of these on near mint conditions. So Spider-Man was a lot, and I am not a Spider-Man expert. I don't know Spider-Man the way that I know X-Men. So Omar helped with this last year. DBZ All-Star helped a ton with it this year. And I understand so much more about Spider-Man. So first, if we look at the Marvel Masterworks era, this is pretty simple. All of the Spider-Man Marvel Masterworks volumes are pretty much obeying the 3 volumes of Masterworks per 1 volume of Omnibus rule. So Team Up is very, very obvious. The cool thing about Team Up is when we get to Team Up Volume 3, that is by Claremont and Byrne. Pretty much all of the Claremont and Byrne Team Up issues are in that one. So Marvel's probably not going to skip Volume 2, but Volume 3 is the one that a lot of people want. The Spider-Man line, I do think is going to get back to 3 Masterworks per volume. I just think they did that weird like 2 Masterworks volume for Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, just because they were trying to line up the creator breaks a little bit better, which these will maintain. And then of course, Spectacular. The goal of Spectacular is basically for us to take it all the way to the point that Conway starts writing Spectacular and Webb. And actually that Volume 3, I think we don't have a Masterworks Volume 9. I think that would actually come a little bit short, or it would go a little bit short. And then the Conway Omnibus would just pick up after that. So, or actually, you know what? First is David, then Conway, because then this is the big education I got. I did not understand how much Peter David and Conway had written in the 80s and early 90s. So then Peter David takes over Spectacular Spider-Man if it's before Conway. Also, some people just want a Black Costume Saga Aftermath. It's interesting to think about what would be in that book, because would it be just Amazing Spider-Man from after Black Costume Saga to get us to 299, basically, because then we have so many omnibuses from 300 and forward. That is certainly a way you could do it. It would have some crossovers from across the line, like the Mad Dog story, like Craven's Last Hunt, but you pretty much could get that all in one book. Or actually, and I find this very intriguing, would you actually do a line-wide Spider-Man omnibus, which Black Suit Saga kind of is, and collect Web and Spectacular alongside Amazing? In that case, you would probably need 2 books to get all the way to the end of Amazing Spider-Man 299. Your vote for that could be a vote for either. We didn't, we can't control that. Then we have this Conway run. This generated so many comments in CK. I got to learn so much, which is really cool. Like whenever I say it generated comments, it's negative, never a negative thing, because I learned that actually Conway took Spectacular also so he could take Webb and basically alternate the story between the two. So it's not just that he wrote 2 runs at once, it's that they absolutely go together. So this would actually probably be one of 2 omnibuses collecting his Spectacular and Webb together. Web of Spider-Man number 2, however, I think can it totally exist and still fit before that. And then finally, we've never had an exclusive collection, just the Spider-Man 1990, except for the Todd McFarlane Omnibus, which skips 1 issue. So this could either pick up after that issue and make it all the way to Clone Saga, which starts, I think, around issue 50, or it actually probably could get all the way from issue number 1 all the way to the beginning of Clone Saga if it skipped crossovers between all 4 books. So that is a book we've never had before. Then we get to the Clone Saga to get to JMS. So we broke it into 4 Clone Saga volumes. Some people think that's too much for the poll, but guess what? Some people really specifically want Spider-Hunt Identity Crisis. Some people very specifically want Gathering of the Five and the last chapter. So a lot of people are going to vote for volume 1, but I think a lot of people are going to separately vote for 3 and 4. I think 2 will be the odd one out, but we map that completely. It's all on Crushing Crisis, and it covers all of his titles, all of his appearances throughout that whole period before the relaunch in 1998 and 1999. Then we need these 2 next chapter books. We had a John Byrne Spider-Man Omnibus, but it didn't cohesively collect all of the Spider-Man from this era. We've got to get all the way to Amazing Spider-Man 30, and the 2 books very much interrelate together. So it would take 2 omnibuses to do that. I personally think it would include all of Web Spinners. Web Spinners kind of has tales from all throughout continuity, but enough of the tales are in current continuity in this period that I think you would just split up all of Web Spinners between those 2 books. Then we have the JMS period, J.M. Straczynski, and I almost said Michael Bendis. But there's a lot of books that are happening to the side of him. So Paul Jenkins keeps writing Spider-Man Peter Parker, and then he also writes Spectacular Spider-Man. His runs on both of those books that are after that next chapter 2 that continue throughout this would make one great book, and you could just put all the Paul Jenkins stuff in one. Then there's a JMS companion. There's a pretty substantial Spider-Man Unlimited series in this period. There are so many miniseries that are not going to be in JMS, so that's kind of a catch-all to vote for if you want any of that. Spider-Man Marvel Knights turns into Sensational Spider-Man. It's the same volume, it just changes names, so that could go all into one volume. A volume that created a lot of controversy with people that we put Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man by Peter David in the same one with Tom Taylor. 2 very different runs, but they're both called Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and they both take like a hyper local approach to Spider-Man. So it's really the only way to fit them in omnibus because they're both like under 20 issues. And then the Gauntlet, which is actually the big one, and I expect it to do very, very well in the poll because the Gauntlet comes after the 2 JMS books. and it will link us all the way to Dan Slott with Big Time. It could fit into one book. I have done the math. So and actually I love the material in that book. So I think that's really going to do very well. Then we get to Dan Slott. So the Dan Slott period is kind of interesting because clearly it's going to start with Big Time by Dan Slott Volume 1. But we didn't map that whole period before Superior Spider-Man because there's a lot of questions, right? Will it just have Amazing and follow the map of the complete collections, or will it like pull in all different stuff? It's hard to say. Would it have all of Spider Island? In the way that I mapped it, you could fit in all of the Spider Island sideline stuff. Some people want to have a Spider Island event omnibus separately that has the main ASM issues and all of the other issues. I guess my question to you would be like, at the point that we know we have to cover all this slot material, shouldn't that event omnibus just be part of the slot line? Like, do we really want to duplicate content just to make an event out of an event that's like not even that major of an event? So depending on what your answer are to those questions, this could be 1 volume, 2 volumes, 3 volumes. It's a lot of variance. So that's why we only put a volume 1 in there. It's just one of those instances where there's way too much ambiguity to know. Then Superior happens, and some other things happen during Superior, not too much, but in the immediate aftermath of Superior, this is the hardest book to name on the whole poll. And it's why it has this long name: Amazing Spider-Man, Superior Aftermath, Return of Peter Parker. This is that run in 2014 during Marvel Now. Peter Parker comes back into his own body. He doesn't really remember things. This is where Silk gets introduced. This is where he first has his initial team up with Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, and it's the run with Spider-Verse. But you wouldn't have to collect all of Spider-Verse in here because so much of Spider-Verse were all these tie-in series that are in the Spider-Verse omnibus. You would just need Spider-Verse 1 and 2 in here to make sense of this. And this run is actually pretty substantial. It looks on paper like it's only 20 issues, but there were so many 0.1 issues and so many kind of sideline things, including Spider-Man and Silk, the Spider-Fly effect, and the Family Business OGM by Mark Waid, which has to go here because it sets up things that happen in Worldwide, that this would actually be a pretty substantial book. It also has a great arc with Ghost by Jerry Conway. It's just a really fun book, but it's hard to explain because it's like Spider-Verse, but not Spider-Verse. It's going to happen eventually, and I think there's the chance to have it be a really, really fun, good book. Then we get after that to Spider-Man Worldwide by Dan Slott. Based on the length of the OHCs, the oversized hardcovers, I think it's probably 2 volumes and not just 1. It would be a big volume for 1. And I think between it being Spider-Man and Dan Slott, we probably get to 2. And then we already have Spider-Man by Nick Spencer in 2 books. And then we get Spider-Man by Zeb Wells, which could go in 1 book. It tickles 60 issues. Gang War already had its own omnibus, but based on how they split up Spencer, which was just about, well, Spencer had a lot more side series. So maybe Zeb Wells is 1, maybe Zeb Wells is 2, but you could vote for it there. So let me just see a few comments before we move. Oh no, wait, one more Spider-Man slide. So then we did Spider-Man's alternate realities. Just this doesn't affect the poll. And the way I think about the poll, I group them with Spider-Man because there's just so many. I don't know a ton about these, so I can't talk that intelligently. He had a 1970s manga. There's this Mexican Spider-Man that everybody really, really wants, where they continued an alternate reality where Gwen Stacy had lived. There's Spidey Super Stories, which I think would be really cool to have, which was produced by Children's TV Workshop. The newspaper comics, which we've had in hardcover, but not in omnibus. We had his animated series Adventures, Marvel Age, which was all ages Spider-Man, Marvel Adventures, more all ages Spider-Man, Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane, which was kind of like a very fun YA alternate reality, Renew Your Vows, which is the alternate universe where he and Mary Jane got married and had a kid. Not the same as Spider-Girl, different than that, but it starred in Secret Wars and just kept going and going. And then the Gamerverse, which ties in to the PS4 games. Let me just talk to a few people. Samantha Jane is here. I was thinking about you yesterday. I don't know if it's because I was listening to Gaga or because I was thinking about omnibuses. Logan Wayne, I did make it to school pickup. I'm a very regimented person. I mess things up. I have a certain order that I like to do things in life. You might imagine. And I have a certain time I like to leave the house because I know what traffic's going to be at that time. I know where I can fit the car for parking at school pickup. And then I usually go for a jog before school pickup. And because it's like nice and flat and a great neighborhood to run in. So I just didn't get to do any of that. I had to drive with the normal traffic and get a crappy parking spot. So I didn't get to leave it like my ideal time, but I still picked her up. This top 60, I will be getting the top 60 in 7 short minutes, supposedly. This is just the stuff that I didn't explain from last year. It's not the official top 60. It's my top 60, which we're going to get to. Is that Claremont team up any good? People really, really love it. Did I really title that book Spider-Man? Well, the thing is, we wanted them all to alphabetize the right way, because if we didn't title them all Spider-Man : or X-Men : then the actual drop downs get really hard to navigate. So it's very prescriptive how we name things. And the whole last 48 hours before we launched the poll was just us outputting the list out of this huge database that we all built together over and over again, and just looking at it alphabetically to be like, if you just scan down this list, does it make sense in alphabetical order? Superman is here from the beginning. Love, surprise, screams. Robert is here. Hello. And you caught the notification. Robert's, as I've said, and will say every time Robert turns up on a stream, his Twitter is the only reason I log into Twitter still. And he's an educator and also a philosopher, and really has some interesting things to say about AI in the context of schools. And people, their deliberate misreads of him when his tweets break containment. Do you ever hear that? Break containment means like it goes past your own network and gets shared more widely. The way that people respond to him when his tweets break containment is just wild. Creme, Pete is amazing how much of the stuff I can remember off the top of my head. You know what? A lot of it comes from, I'm a big write it down to lock it into memory. The reason I know all this is because I've made a database of it. It's like when you were a kid, I had to memorize Bible verses for school, and I would just write them out in longhand, and I would sleep with the Bible under my pillow. Because I remember stuff once I've committed a physical motion to remembering it. And that's a real thing in pedagogy. Like I'm sure Robert Secundus could tell us about. Okay, I've got to get back to the books. I think I voted Spider-Man Marvel Knights and The Gauntlet. The Gauntlet is such a good book. It's so good. Like I would say, actually, if anybody just asked me randomly what post-2000 Spider-Man one book should I pick up and enjoy, I would just say straight up The Gauntlet. Okay, Spider-Verse. This is not really like all multiverse Spider-Man. It's just all the other Spider characters. So we have the Edge of Spider-Verse Omnibus, which is just there's been so many Spider-Verse minis and tie-ins and Edge of Spider-Verse. That could all go in one book. Phil York as Green Goblin could have his own book. We could also have an early years Norman Osborn Green Goblin book that would probably be a really interesting read. Silk basically could have one huge book of her two main ongoing series, and then all the miniseries. She was having one every year all the way up until 2023. I feel like we've come up to like a good break point where it feels like anything that she does when she comes back will have to be a little bit different or progressed in some way. So I think this is a good point to cut it. And I love Silk. I love Silk. I've loved almost every issue that would be in that book. Slingers, which you can go on the official stream and hear DBZ All-Star talk about in great rapturous length because I don't know anything about it. And then Spider-Boy by Dan Slott, which if you have not been reading, as you've seen on my Pola shows, I love Spider-Boy by Dan Slott. I think it's one of my favorite things that I've ever read Dan Slott do. I love kids in comics. I love comics about kids being kids. I like that Spider-Boy is 10 and he's not 12 or 14 or 19. Like, the comics medium is about that. And us as adults can still appreciate those. Then we have Anya Corazon, Mayday Parker, of course, the Spider-Girl of the MC2 that everybody loves. There's enough, by the way, MC2 universe tie-ins, because there were like Avengers Next and all these other books that you could, I've got hair stuck to me, that you could actually do a whole extra MC2 book without any Mayday in it. Spider-Ham Peter Porker, which I love. I have on the shelf right here. Of course, I think, people sometimes are like, oh, do you like Spider-Man because his name is Peter? I'm like, well, no, because he's not one of my favorite heroes. If there's a Peter I identify with, it is Spider-Ham Peter Porker. Then there's villains. We could have a Doc Ock book. We could have a Craven book. That map is based on my Craven guide, which is intense and available to Patreons right now. Then we have Spider-Man Noir. So that wouldn't be the same as the Marvel Noir Omnibus. That would be all of his Spider-Man Noir material, including material in Spider-Verse and After Spider-Verse. Scarlet Spider, which once was Ben Reilly by Peter David, but then earlier was Kane by Yost, and that could actually just put in all of his 2014 New Warriors series, which I actually love. It was really, really good, and that could just all fit in there because it's too short to be on its own. Of course, Jessica Drew, we have early years, which would be just the contents of her Marvel Masterworks, and then also the modern years, which would be everything from her giant size special after Secret Invasion and onward, including all of her mega popular Marvel Now stuff. All of the runs are kind of like a weird shape for an omnibus, but they could just take the approach that took to that Moon Knight omnibus that had several different series by several different authors and kind of just start from her giant size Spider-Woman. It'll have a 7-issue Bendis series. It'll have a Dennis Hopeless series. It could even, that line could continue all the way to the Carla Pacheco series, although that one is almost long enough to be an omnibus by itself. Spider-Moon and Julia Carpenter, which I think is basically, we should have called that before Madam Web. I think that's a weird pick. She doesn't really have a lot of material on her own, but there she is. And Maddie Franklin and the Loners, which would have all of Spider-Woman 1999. Now we come to Star Wars. Creme loves Slingers. Patrick Borgold, that's why he put The Gauntlet in his top 10. It's still X-Men by Austin at number 1. Hayden, sorry you're late. YouTube decided to be a butterface, and only gave me the notification. Now that's fine. This is just the amuse boost before we get to the actual ballot. And only a couple slides left before I get to my personal top 60. Okay, those Jessica Drew modern years have really good books. Yeah, Jamie, that's a good omnibus. I probably wouldn't buy it because I have it all in trades, and it's we'll get to this on my ballot. I tend to emphasize books that fix bad collecting problems. They're actually collected pretty consistently, so I probably wouldn't buy it personally, but it's a very good book that I could heartily recommend. Okay, Star Wars. This is gonna be quick because I don't know a lot about Star Wars. The newspaper strips are enough for their own omnibus. And then this is all that's left in terms of Dark Horse material that we still need to collect. New Republic 3, Empire 4, and then Menace Revealed 1 and 2, and Clone Wars. I don't know why they alphabetized in that order, 1 and 2. I must have missed a space in one of them. But the point is, people are like, why'd you put on Clone Wars? Obviously, Menace Revealed is going to be first. Not necessarily. They have absolutely jumped ahead to a volume 1 of one of the different periods before completing the period before it. So there's no guarantee that it would necessarily go in that order, but that's all that's left to complete all of the classic Dark Horse material. Then we have some other stuff, including Boba Fett, which could just be all of his stuff, Star Wars Legacy, which is part of Dark Horse, but is in the future, Star Wars Infinities, which is like a what if, Star Wars Darth Maul, which would have all of his material actually in canon, because his 2014 series, even though it was before Marvel, is actually in canon. It got grandfathered in, Son of Dathomir. Then Star Wars Legends, the Skywalker Saga movie adaptations. I would buy this, and I actually almost put this on my ballot. They have now adapted all 9 of the Skywalker Saga movies. They're in the process of doing Rise of Skywalker right now, so you could have a book that's just all 9 movies front to back. Now, the movies, it would make them so much money that I am certain that they would do a prequels omnibus and then an original trilogy omnibus and then a sequels omnibus. But it could be done. It could be done. And then the Disney Plus, and then Disney Plus adaptations. They've done Mandalorian and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. They haven't done the Book of Boba Fett yet, so maybe you would wait for that. But some people want to vote for it. So then we have the new current Star Wars continuity. They could do all of High Republic Adventures, which is the YA High Republic comic. It's so much better than the not YA High Republic comic. That would probably have to be 2 books, but I heartily recommend that to you and to kids in your life who like Star Wars. Then they've been doing these very slim omnibuses of each High Republic phase. So that would be the phase 3 omnibus. Then we could do all the prequel era miniseries, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, etc., etc. There's also these Age of Star Wars one-shots they did. They did some for basically each of the movie eras. There's a chance that they could be spread apart into different books. Like if we did a prequels miniseries book, that could have those one shots. And then if we did a sequels mini book, it could have those one shots, or they could just be one omnibus. And then the episode 4.5 miniseries, somebody pointed out rightfully, some of these actually happened before episode 4. So it's actually 3.5 to 4.5 all together. Then we have the really current stuff. Star Wars 2020, Darth Vader 2020, which I love, Bounty Hunters 2020, Hidden Empire, the event, Dark Droids, the event, Return of the Jedi Aftermath, which is the Battle of Jakku and Ewoks. Also, people pointed out that very early in the Marvel Star Wars license, there was Star Wars Aftermath, I think it was called, or Shattered something. Anyway, it was one of the first books they did. It was right around when the sequel movies started, and it also fit directly into this immediate post-Return of the Jedi time period. So that would probably be in that too. And then Poe Dameron, which used to be on the poll and fell out of the poll. Maybe it will come back. I think, did I not say, so maybe I left them out by mistake, but there's also all of the Clone Wars cartoon tie-in comics, which weren't Dark Horse comics. They were like original graphic novels. They're on the poll. I think I just left them off of these slides. Marvel has never touched reprinting of those and hasn't even mentioned them. They're not an epic or anything. So there might be a rights issue for why they can't be collected, but they also exist and they're also on the poll. Okay, just a few more now, but let me just look at a few more. Robert Secundus expanding on the pedagogy. Even if you've never looked at notes again, actively writing something down or typing it really sharply improves recall. And I think people think I'm this human database and I remember everything. It's because I write everything down. I'm a note taker. One of the ways I got my start in the professional world is I was hired to basically keep track of all of the elements of a legal settlement at a healthcare company that was changing the way that they had to, it had nothing to do with patients. It had to do with like how they report codes to doctor's office and how codes of things are organized. And I was basically there to go to all these very legally sensitive meetings and to write down everything and then know what to take out that I couldn't have officially in the record because it was legal. Like if there was like a sidebar conversation, I had to know to not write that down because it would get entered into the record. And that was one of my first jobs out of college. And I did that because I was known to be this amazing note taker who captured everything and organized everything well and then remembered it all. And so I think that's just kind of like how my brain works. Bunkmaster B is here, of course. Finally somebody got a chance to listen to something. Hold on, I got to back up. Listen to Chromacopia because Bunkmaster is on one of his chronological listens. I got to introduce Bunkmaster B to Dochi's Anxiety over the weekend, which I had just heard on YouTube, even though it's been out for like a month or two, which is funny because it's a re-record of like an old mixtape style song she did from 2019. Some people are so butthurt that it's got the sample from all of Somebody That Used to Know by Gautier and Kimbra, New Zealand artist, in it. But I think it's great because it doesn't, I don't like when songs sample a whole song and then it sounds just like that song. Like it's the same melody with just like different lyrics. But Doji's Anxiety doesn't sound anything like somebody that used to know. It just is the music of it. She's written a totally different composition, which to me is really, really thrilling. I've discovered some people hate it, and I like don't get that at all. I think it's so exciting. And then Hayden, I feel like they could do adaptations of the post-Jedi shows along with Mando and Gorgo movie adaptation. Yeah, that omnibus is going to change as years goes on because we're still going to get more. Shattered Empire. Thank you, Hayden. Shattered Empire. And you can like Scarlet Spider on his own. Honestly, I've never read all of the Clone Saga. I was there live and alive for some of it. But no, you don't have to know the whole Clone Saga to appreciate all of Scarlet Spider stuff, because you kind of get the information you need about like which version of Peter Parker they are and what their life's been like at the time of that. Okay, so now let's just get through this. So teams, non-X-Men, non-Avengers, non-Defenders, all those things that are on the side, it's not those. Agent of Atlas, which had a really fun run for about 5 years. It also, I think, would include all of their debut issues from their original appearances in the Atlas era. I think that'd be really fun. I would absolutely buy that book. Agents of Atlas, the new Agents of Atlas / White Fox and the Tiger divisions, they kind of cross over. Alpha Flight Volume 3, which I pray is on the poll because I want it so bad. We were just talking about a near mint condition. It could finish all of Alpha Flight, maybe, depending on how Marvel maps it. Then the modern years from 1997 and on. Champions by Wade Zub and Ewing, which is the young champions or the new champions. Champions the early years, which somebody had the brilliant suggestion should be combined with X-Men's hidden or lost years of the Silver Age, like X-Men Volume 3, because they're both like 500-page books. They were each a mass. The X-Men were 2 masterworks. The Champion is 1 fat masterwork. And people were like, oh, they should just be the same book. And actually, hold on. If I jump off camera for a second, I can actually show you that in real time. So this is the, where's my damn screen? Okay. These are the X-Men Masterworks that have those 2. And there's only about 8 issues that are not in these Masterworks that you could add. So that would just be the X-Men Silver Volume 3 omnibus. And then here's the Champions, which again, maybe there's 2 or 3 issues that didn't quite make it into here, but this is truly everything. So they're like, these would both be pretty small omnibuses, but together they actually make a pretty solid omnibus, and you can call it like X-Men and the Champions or something. I don't know. So I thought that was a pretty cool suggestion. We didn't put that on the poll, but I might put it on next year. And then, of course, Clandestine. Let's continue through teams pretty quickly because I want to talk about my ballot, mine. Damage Control, obviously. Eternals, we combined the Gaiman and Knopf material with the Gillen material because they were both pretty slim, and I thought it would help the Gillen material do better. In retrospect, putting Gaiman's name there probably is helping it do worse, so maybe next year we'll leave it off. Heroes for Hire, which I actually, again, used to have these as 2 separate omnibuses. Nobody's going to buy... Oh, I didn't have my slides up. Nobody's going to buy 2 separate Heroes for Fire omnibuses. It's never going to happen. So we just put it in one, and actually could all fit into one. Inhumans, the early years, very, very popular vote, which would have both of their masterworks, but actually it would be like they have these 3 trades, and then they have all of their masterworks, and then there's even more material after that. We had it in 2 books last year. We made it 1 this year. It would be stretching the boundaries of 1 book. They'd have to leave 1 or 2 issues out, but it could have happened. Inhumans in the Marvel Knights years, starting from the Paul Jenkins, Jay Lee series in 1998, and then the period of Inhumans resurgence in the mid-2010s, split into 2 halves. One of it would be the half that is all by Charles Soule. The second would be the Resurrection half. Then, as we continue through our team titles, we've got the Invaders, the modern years, pretty much every Invaders book from 1998 on. They're all short runs. The longest one is 12 issues, so they can't be their own omnibuses. Lost Generation, the Marvel Universe, it was pointed out to me that actually Lost Generation already exists in omnibus. It is in the John Byrne Marvel Omnibus, so we will take this off the poll next year as one of our true goofs of the year. New Warriors Origins, which started out just with us saying, how can we get Steve Ditko's, I think it's Steve Ditko's Speedball, right? It's Ditko, or is it Kirby? The dots make me think it's Kirby. Somebody in the comments will know. But we started out by saying, where can we put that? And then we realized, oh, you could have all of that Speedball material, and you could have all of Justice's kind of origin material from Marvel 2-in-1, and you could have Namorita's like key early stories, and you could have Rage's arc where he's introduced in Avengers, and that could all be, and also Firestar, which I left off just for space reasons, but you could have Firestar 1 through 4 and Uncanny X-Men 194, and that could all make 1 book. So like that would be great. And Super Drop to the rescue. Speedball is Ditko. Perfect. Okay. Then New Wars, the Modern Years, starting with their 1999 series, probably also collecting all of Nova 99. Next Wave by Elson Immonen, too small for an omnibus on its own. I think that would actually just be in a Elsa Bloodstone omnibus. Runaways, following the Brian K. Vaughan of Runaways omnibus to collect all their other material at the beginning of Marvel Now, and then Runaways by Rainbow Rowell, which is spectacular, one of my favorite books. And then just Squadron Supreme by James Robinson, which is 2015 to 2017, but it would include the Hyperon and Nighthawk miniseries, and then also Thunderbolts, the only Thunderbolts book that we're missing, which is the gap fill between Volume 3 and Uncaged, which is all that amazing Warren Ellis and Mike Deodato, but also some good stuff from Christos Gage and Andy Diggle. It's actually possibly my favorite run of Thunderbolts, so it's crazy that it's not an omnibus. Now we're going to do Thor and Asgard, which is going to be pretty quick. Thor and the Warriors 3, which could be all their key stories. The next two Marvel Masterworks volumes of Thor. Thor has almost always done the exact 3 Masterworks rule. One time it did 4, but there's a reason, because Simonson's stuff largely starts with Masterworks 23. I think it's 22 might have like an issue or 2 in it. So it was that ran so these could walk, basically. So that these could just be 3 Masterworks saga volumes. So volume 6, I think, would collect around issue 301 or 302, and then volume 7 would collect from right after that, 303, right before the beginning of Simonson. Then we could, of course, have a Simonson omnibus with the original colors. Wouldn't that be a dream? All of Beta Ray Bill, every key appearance, all in one omnibus. You can see the Crushing Crisis guide if you want to see what all those issues would be. I think it's a great read. It would make it all the way through Daniel Warren Johnson as a capper. Fantastic book. Thor by DeFalco and Friends, which would be starting basically right after Simonson. So it would be Mighty Thor Volume 9. Thor Thunderstrike by DeFalco, which I absolutely love that comic book. I think it absolutely deserves an omnibus. Would I buy it in omnibus? I probably would prefer Epic Collections, but I still think it should exist. Angela Asgard Starter, which would be of all of Angela's solo stuff, and then Valkyrie Jane Foster, which would be all of Jane Foster's stuff after she stops being Mighty Thor, all of which is really, really good. It's written by Jason Aaron, Al Ewing, and Torun Grönbach. And then Ultimate Marvel, we're so close to completion. Ultimate Marvel Companion would just get all the stuff that's been skipped. Ultimate Fantastic Four, which could include the Galactus trilogy. Ultimate X-Men Volume 4, which would be Brian Wood's run on Ultimate Comics X-Men. Ultimatum, which would be an event omnibus. I know that we've had an Ultimatum hardcover before. I know some of Ultimatum is in Ultimate X-Men Volume 4. This, trust me, you can go on CK and look at the map. There's plenty to put into it. And there's plenty of things that would be missed elsewhere. It's not just a pure double dip. Then the Ultimates that come after that, and then also Cataclysm in the end, which would basically pick up all of the Cataclysm stuff from that hardcover, and then a bunch of books relaunched to basically have very brief runs before the Ultimate Universe was shut down. All of that would fit into that book. I think we probably could have squeezed in one book that was slightly differently named or arranged just a little bit differently. I'm not the biggest Ultimate Marvel expert. Luckily, I had JM21 helping me this year, but I did map it all out explicitly with JM's help on Crushing Crisis, and it does cover everything. I just think ultimately, maybe you would rearrange what goes into the companion to make this make more sense. And then Venom and Carnage, there's hardly anything left. We could have Carnage, The Birth of Carnage, which would have all of his original epic collections. Venom's Volume 4, which would basically fill in the gap between the end of the Omnibus Volume 3 and the Agent Venom period. So like all of not only Eddie Brock's relatively sparse appearances there, although he does become anti-Venom, but also some Mark Gargan as Spider-Man and or Venom because he's got the symbiote, and also some lead-in material of Flash Thompson, although he doesn't get the suit, of course, until the beginning of that Agent Venomnibus. Then Venom into the Venomverse, which would be basically all of Venom's material from All New, All Different Marvel. It starts out being written by Mike Costa. Cullen Bunn writes a lot of it as well, crosses over with X-Men Blue. It introduces the idea of the Venomverse, so that would fill in all the way to Kate's. Then Carnage Volume 2 would pick up everything after his Jerry Conway series, which honestly is a big book. I did the math. It's like all of Carnage's appearances in that period, not even including all of Absolute Carnage. And then, of course, Venom by Ewing. Ewing finished 39 issues plus the 5 issues of Venom War, plus some crossover stuff already. So I don't, unless All New Venom ends like next month, that would just have to fit into a Volume 2. So we have enough that we could get started. And then we get all the way to Wolverine, which I'm pretty sure I did last week, right? But because I did X-Men. So I think I also did Wolverine. We're going to assume that I did because we got to move on to my ballot. Okay, so let me get this off the stage and let me load up my ballot. So let me just say again, so that nobody gets it confused or twisted, this is Crisis's ballot. I am not reporting on results. I have not peeked at the results. That is not what's happening here. Every single slide in this show says Crisis's picks so that there is no confusion or ambiguity that I am breaking embargo to take a look at the votes as they are currently happening. So I just want to be very, very clear about that. This is what I would pick if I was doing the top 60. So before we get There we go. I keep removing the wrong thing. Let's just get a couple of comments before we move on. Jeff Parker never lets me down, Chromai. Like every Jeff Parker comic I've read is a pretty solid comic. Every one. I can't think of a single bad one. Agents of Atlas, super, super enjoyable. Jamie C47 has only read the All Asian Agents of Atlas, is the 2006 one. It is very fun and very worth reading. It's totally different. It's a very, very different premise. The premise is that all of those Atlas era heroes kind of are reawakened or come back and team up to be secret agents together. I love both sides. I love the Asian Agents of Atlas. I love the other side. I think they're just really great comics. Patrick Borgold, a question about Fantastic Four. Where does the 2-in-1 series fit in omnibus format? Could it be put in the Robinson Omnibus? Great question. So Patrick Borgold is talking about Marvel 2-in-1 by Chip Zdarsky from 2017, which predated the reassembly of the Fantastic Four and Dan Slott's Fantastic Four 2018. It's been its own oversized hardcover, and it's never been an omnibus. So one option is you could just put it at the start of the Dan Slott Fantastic Four omnibus, because it does say what Torch and Doom and Thing were up to. I do think that's weird to start a Slott omnibus with Zdarsky. I personally would probably prefer that. It would be weird to put it on the end of the Robinson Omnibus, because you would be missing all of Secret Wars, which is like a Fantastic Four story, and then you would like turn the page and it would be like, by the way, the Richards are totally gone. So I think the best option for it is probably to put it in the Slott Omnibus. I think it would be very weird to put it in the Robinson Omnibus. Okay. Then the Speedball stuff, which I saw. Yes, yeah, Next Wave would be weird as an omnibus by itself. I think it's almost certainly got to go into an Elsa Bloodstone book, because Monica Rambeau Spectrum has so much other material that's more serious. Elsa Bloodstone is that tone all the time. I'm not saying sampling is lazy. There are many songs with many samples that I enjoy. The thing that I don't like specifically is when a song samples not only samples, but like uses whole chunks of the original, and then the melody is the same and like the lyrics map so similarly to the one that it makes me think of is that Puff Daddy song right after Notorious B.I.G. died with Faith Evans on it, where it like samples Every Breath You Take, right? But it's like, it's the same shape of that song. Like and the hook is the same and the same melodic structure of that song. I'm not saying that's bad or like boring or whatever. Like making music involves the appropriation of other music. It always has. For me personally, I don't enjoy a song that interpolates that doesn't interpolate and just straight up delivers. To me, a song like Anxiety, even though it has the straight up instrumental track of somebody that I used to know, is more of an interpolation, because it has such a unique melodic structure to it on its own that you almost forget that there was another melody to that song originally. But again, that's just for me. Okay, so in the Ultimate slip, where the Reservation and the Captain America President fit in? I don't know, because I've never read those comics, so I don't know what plot points you're talking about. The Thing, that's the book we missed. So I personally think Galactus Trilogy should be in the Fantastic Four line. However, the book that we could have put on there to do a slight double dip but offer an alternate option would basically be the Galactus Enemy and Powers book that would have all of Galactus Trilogy, Ultimate Enemy, and Ultimate Powers, and they all kind of go together to have Ultimate Vision in it too. So now that it's kind of one of those things that I had to see it that way. It was like a necker box, and I had to like force my vision to look at it that way. And once I saw it that way, I was like, oh yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense. So probably next year we will put it in there. Bunkmaster would love a Beta Ray Bill omnibus. So I'm saying I would reveal the results. Yeah, that's what we're doing. It definitely doesn't say Crisis' Most Wanted. It says Tigereyes, and we're going to reveal all of my results. JJ Tiffany feels like I do a show weekly, taking sections of a comic chronology and breaking down the omnibus volume lead up stories in each volume. I've been thinking about it, because I will say, I know so many of you know me because I talk about collected comics. So it's almost kind of weird that I'm on YouTube talking about the pull list. I'm not saying the pull list is going away. It's coming back. But I am thinking like, oh, what could I do that's more about collections? Okay, these are my top 60. I am familiar with every book on this poll because I was the ultimate approver of all the titles before they went into the poll that Jim built. So I know all about all of them. If I got my own top 60, I would spend $6,000 on these 60, $100, probably $9,000 now, because they're all going to be $150 soon. But these are the books that I personally would put everyone on my shelf, and you will start to understand my methodology as I go. I'll try to keep an eye on your comments as we go. Here we go. And this is just straight up 60 number one. Number 60, Khazar, the Silver Age Omnibus. Why? You will notice one of my big motivations in the books that I pick is I like a book that justifies another omnibus. So we already have the Khazar early 80s series, and we never had this omnibus that came before it. Also, this could correct the wrong of filling in some stuff that the Masterworks have skipped. So originally the Masterworks line never double dipped. Like if there was Daredevil material that Khazar was prominent in, the Masterworks line was like, no, that's in Daredevil Masterworks. But this book could correct that. So not only could it have all this Marvel Masterworks material, which is substantial, but it could kind of do a similar thing to the Namor omnibus line and add in that early stuff. So I think this would be really fun. And if this existed, I probably would also buy that existing Khazar omnibus, which I didn't get because I was like, oh, well, I already have that in Masterwork, which is standard size. I guess I should wait for it to come out in Epic collection. Like right now, I'm kind of waiting for Epic, but if they did this, I would go in on omnibus. My number 59 pick is X-Men Blue and Gold Volume 2, which is AKA Shattershot, Fatal Attractions, and Blood Ties. Of course, there's a 3-hour video on Your Mint Condition of us explaining the map to this book and why it would be mapped like this. But basically, some of Shattershot is in Blue and Gold Volume 1 because chronologically, that's when it happens. The rest of what's in Shattershot happens after Executioner's Song, and so it has to be in Blue and Gold Volume 2. I own all this material already, so it's not a super high priority for me, but I do like the idea of Uncanny X-Men and X-Men 1991 being in the same book in the correct reading order in the same way they are in the Epic collection. So it would never make it in my top 10. I do not prioritize voting for things that have already been collected successfully, and this has been collected successfully in 2 different formats already. But I can't say that I don't want it. Steve M, never trust my pronunciations of anything. I don't know how any words are pronounced. If I say it that way, it's almost certainly wrong, actually, is the case. By the way, if you've not voted for the poll yet, you now have less than 2 hours. So you should start filling out your ballot. Why I am talking. Are they going to be the quirkiest picks popular? Or is it all going to be X-Men? I guess we're going to find out. Could be Khazar. Never know. You just never know. And I certainly don't know because I'm terrible at these things. My pick number 58 would be New X-Men Academy X by D. Phillips and Weir. This actually starts with New Mutants 2003. So they brought New Mutants back while Grant Morrison's New X-Men was still running. And then they ended that series because basically it was each issue was the New Mutants recruiting some new recruit to be a new X-Men kid to establish Academy X. And then that rolls into the first 15 issues of Academy X. But there's also a Hellions miniseries. What's interesting about this is I think this could exist without the Kyle and Yost book, but I also think the Kyle and Yost book could exist after this, which is why I actually voted for the Kyle and Yost pick. If I could have put in 60 votes, which I couldn't, I would have voted for it higher because this book can totally stand alone. It begins with House of M. Actually, I think you could sneak House of M into the end of the last book. I think it's a weird thing to begin a book, but it is by Kyle and Yost. And then this is that whole childhood's end story. You don't need to have read what came before. You could, but I think this is one of those examples where we didn't map ahead. Marvel would absolutely collect this and release it on its own. It's in much higher demand than that other material. But I love this book. I absolutely love it. I don't love all the art. Some of the art's not my favorite, but I love the story and I love these characters. I have a lot of affection for them. And I absolutely think it should exist. I promise this is not all X-Men. You're going to be surprised how not X-Men it got. Oh, it doesn't say tie. That's a leftover from the slide I picked this up on. My number 56 pick is Road to Onslaught Volume 2. It's almost certainly happening. We already have a Road to Onslaught Volume 1 announced. It was originally just going to be Road to Onslaught No Volume, but then Marvel split it into 2. Why? It's hard to say. I think they put enough miniseries and things in the first omnibus that it makes sense, but Marvel usually likes to go pretty big on these 90s omnibuses. And if this only collects exactly what was left over and fit into the Road to Onslaught trade paperbacks, it's only going to be like 26 issues. I think there's the chance for it to pick up a few things that are kind of like are in that same Onslaught period, but they've already skipped over in the Onslaught Aftermath book. So could it maybe include Rise of Apocalypse or Books of Ascani or Ascani's Son in this as well? Maybe, but I actually think this is going to be on the shorter side for a 90s X-Men omnibus, which is fine. Again, I don't super high prioritize things we have fine in another format, but I do prioritize omnibuses that fill a gap. So since this would fill an existing gap between Road to Onslaught Volume 1 and Onslaught itself, to me, that's a moderately high priority for me. Probably no Geoff Johns on these picks. Not only do I not love Geoff Johns, but he has not written that much Marvel material. Most of the Marvel material he has written is in that forthcoming Avengers by Johns omnibus. Richard Bradley saying Blue and Gold number 2 was his number 2 pick. I'd map to 30 and 310, but it's a title poll, not a mapping poll. Yes, I'm glad that has caught on. I I think you absolutely could map that far, and it would be a great place to end, and I don't object to that at all. I think it makes it kind of big, and I think it makes the next one smaller. I think I did the math, and the sizes are more equal if you cut off at Blood Ties, but you certainly could map all the way to the wedding. It would work. Super Panda wants an Omni collecting Uncanny and Adjectiveless X-Men together. That's what Blue and Gold is. Blue. So basically, we only need that to cover the 3 up until Age of Apocalypse, because after that, we have, conveniently, the pick I was just talking about, Road to Onslaught, and everything has always been collected together after that. The only period we don't have it collected together is the period from before Age of Apocalypse, and 3 Blue and Gold volumes would do that. Then we would successfully have them collected together all the way until 2001, where they split apart again. So perfect. When did the final results? So the poll closes in 2 hours. Jim puts the results together for about 72 hours. He's got to do all of his like deduping. Some people clicked vote twice by mistake. He does all the calculations. He figures out where all the ties are. Then we get that in about 72 hours. And then Taylor starts making Taylor and I both together start putting the slides. Now, luckily this year I've done all the mapping already. So it's just going to be basically making this presentation over again, but with the real top 60. And then that announcement is literally 7 days from this very moment almost. It's at 5:30 next week on near mint condition on Thursday. It's called Blue and Gold because the X-Men teams, they had 2 squads in the early 90s when they came, when Jim Lee was launching Uncanny or X-Men 1991 #1, and then Uncanny X-Men was 281. And so Uncanny X-Men was the gold team, which was led by Storm and had Jean Grey in it. X-Men Adjectiveless was the blue team, which was led by Cyclops and had Wolverine in it. And they actually kept them pretty separate for like a solid 20 issues before they started intermingling a lot. So people think of that era as the Blue and Gold era, and that's why it's called Blue and Gold. All right, let's keep going. My number 55 pick would be Road to Messiah Complex. This is one of those ones that I always never really understood how we were going to map it. And this year we finally cracked it. There was always like, where does the Brubaker material go? Do you shove it into Messiah Complex? It doesn't have anything to do with it. Or like, where does the Mike Carey material go? Do you put it at the beginning of Legacy? It's not really the same as Legacy. No, man. I don't know what was wrong with us. They're all the Road to Messiah Complex. So this would have Deadly Genesis, Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire, which would be a double dip, but we never have had Extremists, but also by Ed Brubaker in oversized hardcover. It would also have Supernovas by Mike Carey, but we never had Blinded by the Light in oversized hardcover. And if we wanted to, we could also have some of Brubaker's material from War of Kings. I think it's crazy to say this would collect all of War of Kings. It's not a cosmic omnibus, but there are 9 more issues of X-Men written by Brubaker that are happening kind of to the side of Messiah Complex. So I think you could put that in here. Now that I've seen this map, I'm never going back. This is how it should be collected. If they collect it any other way, it's stupid. Okay, this is officially what it should be. Crisis pick number 54. See, I told you there's some non-X-Men stuff, but again, I tend to prioritize stuff that hasn't been oversized and that fills a gap. This would be called Thanos: The Road to Annihilation. It fits between Infinity Crusade and Annihilation, and I think it has some really good stuff in it. It has all of Thanos's 2000s era stuff, including Infinity Abyss and the Thanos 2003 series, which has never been an oversized hardcover, but there's a lot of Thanos stuff in the 90s that we could put in it too that would link all the way from the end of Crusade all the way to the beginning of Annihilation. Some people would say, isn't this the same omnibus as the Warlock and the Infinity Watch omnibus? Because Thanos is in that a lot, and that's 42 issues that kind of runs alongside and then beyond the Infinity Trilogy. I just don't know if it all would fit. If Marvel told me, hey, we can actually call this Thanos and the Infinity Watch, and we're going to fit in all 42 issues of that and all of this stuff, I would absolutely buy it. I just think that that's a book that's too big to fit. I also like that this would pick up all of Cosmic Powers. You might throw Cosmic Powers Unlimited into this too, but Thanos actually isn't in that. So just the first issue. So this would be basically everything Thanos to get him to the modern era of comic books. And even though I'm not a huge Thanos buyer, I would get this because it's never been collected this way. We've had a lot of the stuff. We've had a Road to Annihilation trade. We've had trades of this Thanos stuff, but I don't like when I have to find like 3 different trades from 3 different eras that have 3 different trade dresses to put them together. So that is another one of my motivations for wanting a book. Basically, if it's like really hard to figure out how I would even get this on my shelf all in a row, to me, that is a great reason to have an omnibus. People are loving this Road to Messiah complex map. I cannot take credit. This is all JM21, who's an amazing X-Men fan and has such a great brain for this. Road to Messiah was my number 8. Really like the way you've got it. Again, I cannot take credit. It seems so obvious, but sometimes it takes somebody really intelligent to give you an obvious solution. And people of lesser intelligence, such as moi, will map it in a more complicated way. And JM saved our ass this year. JJ Tiffany loves that Thanos series, really good with the Hunger issues with Galactus. Yeah, it's a really good series, and it's got a really great pedigree. It's kind of wild to me that it's never been oversized. Okay, continuing. Gosh, we're only 6 picks in, so we're going to be here for a while. Number 53, My Beloved Excalibur Volume 4. This has all been collected in Epic already, so it's a relatively low priority for me, but I do like completing things on the shelf, and this would complete not only the Excalibur Omnibus line of Excalibur 1 through 4, but that would make it the first X-Men line series from the 80s or 90s that has been completely collected in Omnibus. Not any other series has been totally covered every issue in Omnibus yet. Adjectiveless X-Men isn't there. X-Factor, clearly we have lots of gaps. Wolverine, we're pretty far, but we need 2 or 3 more volumes. New Mutants, we'd still need that volume 4. There's that little slice of issues that haven't been collected. I really have affection for this Bed Rob material. I do not think this would continue to 2004 and collect Chris Claremont's Excalibur. It has nothing to do with this. It probably, though, could add X-Men Black Sun magic, which got abandoned by the X-Men Omnibus line, so it could fit here since it's got Amanda Sefton, who is traditionally an Excalibur character. My number 52 pick is Shang-Chi The Modern Years by Gene Luen Yang, although it would have material from before him. I think this book would be so exciting, and I love when Marvel does stuff like this, where they use a creator name on a book as an excuse to cram in a lot of other stuff as well, and this would basically pick up exactly after the 4 existing Master of Kung Fu omnibuses, because the next book that Mark Spector is in after that is in Moon Knight Special number 1 in 1992, which he's the cover star of, and also he has a story in Marvel Comics Presents. Then he's got a significant arc of X-Men, he's in Journey into Mystery, all of this stuff. None of this is me just picking random like guest star stuff. This is all key plot motion for Shang-Chi, and all of it's really good. Like in that first paragraph, there's no bad story, really. They're all heartily recommended. Then Yang takes over, and the Yang material on its own is only about, I think, 550 pages. So in reality, would Marvel just make that an omnibus by itself? Probably, but then they could never sell you the rest of this stuff. So I just think put it all in one. And then alongside the Yang material, Alyssa Wong actually did 2 of these things. The Legend of Shang-Chi 2021, number 1, which is very entertaining. I think it's him and White Fox. And also Shang-Chi Infinity Comic 2021, 1 through 4, also by Alyssa Wong. And then Greg Pak actually does the last thing on that list, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu Gang War, which actually wraps up a lot of Yang's plot points. So I think you would probably end there. I think this would be a great book. And I think hopefully Shang-Chi comes back in the MCU. And then this is obvious to print. I would hate it if they only do the second paragraph, the Gene Luen Yang stuff, because then all that stuff from the first paragraph will probably never be collected all into one space. And John S. saying instant buy. James Rhodes saying he would definitely pick it up, especially since those other Shang-Chi books can't be reprinted because of the agreement the Sax Romer state. There's no Shang-Chi omnibus for Marvel to sell. So like that's all the more reason of this. Honestly, I could have ranked this higher because there's no coherent collection of all that stuff in the first paragraph. They put out like a Shang-Chi Kung Fu Guy trade that like had half of that, but not all of it. My number 51 pick is Captain Marvel Carol Danvers, The Miss Marvel Years by Brian Reed. This is 50 issues plus an annual plus 3 specials plus her appearance in Siege Spider-Man. It would be stretching a single book, but I think since Marvel got kind of shy about splitting up things into 2 and having volume 2s, and since they keep pushing back the volume 2 by Kelly Thompson, which is great material and she's a huge name, I think Marvel would try to just fit this into 1, and page count wise, it's fine. It's not like it's going to be 1,700 issues. So I think it could all fit into 1, and this would basically be everything from after House of M, where Carol kind of gets her groove back, all the way to 2010, where we begin Bendis's 2010 Heroic Age Avengers, and then shortly after that, she becomes Captain Marvel. So there are 2 kind of maybe things, which is the second paragraph there. I think it could put in Captain Marvel 2008, which was a Secret Invasion series. She does appear in it, and it's doesn't really have another home. And then also she just makes a smattering of key appearances between the end of being Miss Marvel in this book and becoming Captain Marvel. She's in the second story of She-Hulk Sensational 2010, and then she's also in Secret Avengers for an arc that is the beginning of AVX. That's one of the last things she does before she becomes Captain Marvel. So I think if there's room, I would put it into this book. who did that cover? I think all these covers are by Greg Horn, all these super, super realistic covers. Yeah, there are a lot of really cool covers to this series that just are so dynamic, but this one with her like exploding out of it. It's not after Civil War. I feel like I started to misspeak, but I got it right. It's after House of M. Civil War is actually the second trade paperback of this, which was, fun fact, one of the first trade paperbacks I ever bought when I got back to Marvel, because I was like, well, Civil War, I know what that is from the video game, the Marvel, what was it called? Marvel, I don't know. It was on PlayStation. It was great. So I knew what Civil War was, and I've always loved Carol Danvers. So I walked into a comic book store and I was like, Civil War, and then Rogue was on the cover with Carol Danvers, instant buy. So yeah, that's in this. Civil War is around issue 7 of this. I considered Barbie, but all of these books are books I would buy. They're books I would pre-order on day one if I knew they were mapped well. Barbie, I cannot promise that I would buy on day one. So spoilers. Barbie is not going to be in this list. Ultimate Alliance is the game I was thinking of. Ultimate Alliance number 2. Everybody remembers it. Logan remembers it. Georgie remembers it. James remembers it. It was a great video game. So yeah, that's how I played that game. See, media can bring you back to comics. I played that game, and then it was like New Comic Book Day or something. I was like, ooh, I'm going to go to the comic book store and get a collection that like is this Civil War story. This sounds cool. And so I bought Civil War, the trade paperback, and I bought the trade paperback of Miss Marvel and Civil War. Then I kind of stewed on like, do I want to keep reading comics for a year or two? And then, of course, we've all heard the origin story of Crushing Grace before. All right, that was the first 10. Now let's get to the next 10. It's everybody's favorite pansexual murder son, Akihiro, and his debut in Wolverine Origins. I unashamedly, unironically love Wolverine Origins by Daniel Way. It's been collected in a series of complete collections. This would be pushing it for one book. I don't know if it could fit into one book because there's enough crossover material that this is over 60 issues. It might have to be split into 2. I would be there on day one to buy it. It has so much great art, including art by Steve Dillon. It has so much cool development of Wolverine's history. This is the book that's like, whoa, Wolverine remembers everything. And it's the book that has Daken in it. I just love it. I've told the story 100 times. I'll keep telling it. Before I knew what anybody thought of any comic book, and I was just buying them to enjoy them and start building my guides. I got the first volume of this. I read it in like 30 minutes. I was obsessed. I immediately got into Amazon and next day shipped the next book. And I did that over the series of like 2 weeks where I just kept next day shipping the next volume because I was so addicted to reading this until finally I caught up to the present. I was like, oh no, I'm caught up. There's no more books to buy. I just love this book. It's probably the most I've ever enjoyed Wolverine as a character, which maybe says something more about me than it says about the comic book. I even picked a Greg Land cover. Come on. Who you know me well. You know me well, Casey here. I know what I'm doing here. Daken when he was cool. Yeah, they've watered him down a little bit since then. And I probably the character I'd most love to write for Marvel is Daken. Then we have my number 49 pick, X-Men, The Uncanny X-Men Reloaded by Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont comes back in the mid 2000s and writes a 30-issue X-Men run that is really good that everybody ignores. Now, for a long time, I thought that everybody was ignoring it because it was actually quite hard to find in trade paperback, but then they put it out in like complete trades. So I don't know. Maybe I just have bad taste. I mean, who knows? But this is not only Claremont. It's all, the whole art is either by Alan Davis or Chris Bachalo. Claremont with Davis and Baccello, like this is gold. How is this not an omnibus already? It's crazy that it's not an omnibus already. So I love this material. Again, I don't put as high of a priority on things that I could already easily have on my shelf and trade, which I do with this. However, I think the way you sweeten it, and somebody talked me into it in the comment on one of the mapping posts, is you could just put all of that Excalibur by Chris Claremont in here. It's very much an X-Men book. It's got Xavier and Magneto in it. It fits perfectly here, and it kind of sets up House of M, and House of M is one of the last arcs of this. So I think you would just include all of that Excalibur. If they did that, this would be like a minute one buy for me. Even without that, I would buy this because I want all of X-Men and Omnibus up to 2012. But I think this is a great place to find a home for that Excalibur. You will find the X-Men starts to peter off as we get higher on the poll. I promise. You may be surprised. One Wheelchair X, hello, my friend, is doing a complete reread of post House of X-Men. I've been reading Wolverine Orange for the first time. The Daken stuff is fun, especially the original Sin crossover. Claremont, X-Men after 99-1 is not great. I don't think Revolution is great. I think this is fantastic. I unironically love this. I don't ironically love things. If you have not figured this out about me yet, if I say I like something, I really, really like it. I'm just going to jump out of the slideshow for 1 second here because I just want to make sure that my volume is right and I'm not like blowing you out of the water. Okay. Tell me if it seems like I'm too loud and like screaming and like clipping your headphones. Okay. We got to continue. We got to continue. People have, and also One Wheel Tracks. He's gonna let me finish, but Reload is the X-Men second best Claremont run. Daken. Okay. How did you? I don't see, that's the thing. I don't think people realize. I think people have a very murky understanding of what X-Men was doing as a line after New X-Men, and they kind of like just have amnesia of everything that happened between 2004 and 2008. And then 2008, they're like, oh yeah, Messiah Complex. I really, truly think people just do not know. Not that it's anybody's fault. It's like a bunch of weird runs. They haven't been collected well. They weren't like, they didn't have one big specific plot. And then I think people just literally have amnesia about those 4 years of X-Men. Okay. My number 48 pick is X-Men Uncanny X-Men by Kieran Gillen. This would pick up either from Uncanny X-Men 530 or 534.1 and collect all the way to AVX. I think JM21 in mapping this for the poll made a great point of why would you spend the space on recollecting Uncanny X-Men 11 through 20 and Avengers vs. X-Men Consequences here when that has now been recollected in the AVX Omnibus with all of the things around it that give it context. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, so I could go either way. I'd be happy if this stops right before AVX. I'd be happy if this collects through. However, I do think it has to collect the stuff to the side of this. Please, Marvel, don't F this up. It's got to have Journey to the Negative Zone annuals, even though they were written by James Asmus, because it happens during this run. It should have all of Kieran Gillen's Generation Hope, which actually makes sense because the last few issues are written by James Asmus. It should have X Club, which is written by Cy Spurrier, but absolutely is happening in the background of his Uncanny X-Men. And it also should have Magneto, Not a Hero. I hate in the X-Men line when they release an omnibus of a flagship X-Men era and they leave off like 8 issues of miniseries that could have easily fit in there, because then you know they're going to get abandoned. Do it right, Marvel. Now, if they do it right, they might also include Prelude to Schism in here, which really has no other home. It was terrible, but it also has no other home. And maybe Schism. Schism right now is only in the Wolverine omnibus line, which is very strange because it was written by Jason Aaron, but it's fundamentally an X-Men story, so it probably would need to go in this book. Maybe all this means this is split into 2. I don't have all of the answers. No, well, this is a very specific point. This would not include Sword. Sword is in the Gillen complete collections, but it happens before Messiah Complex. Not Messiah Complex, before Second Coming. Personally, I do not want to read some disconnected story at the beginning of this book and then like jump 10 issues a whole year to read the beginning of Gillen. I think that Sword book belongs in the Second Coming book, which we'll, spoilers, get to, because Second Coming it explains why Beast left and then he comes back. So like, I think it belongs there in order. Okay. And people loving Magneto Not a Hero, and Bo saying this volume is fine. Should include Road to Schism and the one-shot Choosing Sides. Oh, I think I might have forgotten about that one shot in the map. Okay, now I get to explain the other half of that. So this is Matt Fraction Volume 2. I think you could absolutely put this out before Matt Fraction Volume 1 because it has all of Second Coming in it. Second Coming is an Uncanny X-Men story. Everybody crosses into it, but it's the culmination of the whole Utopia era of plot. So it can stand alone as its own book. You don't need the beginning of Matt Fraction. You don't have to call this Volume 2. Just call it Uncanny X-Men Second Coming. I think it would include all of Nation X and all of the Nation X tie-in stuff and miniseries. And then it would have all of Second Coming, and then it would have the Uncanny X-Men arc that directly follows Second Coming, which is called The Five Lights, which introduces what happens as a result of Second Coming, which I think is a fun epilogue. Personally, I feel very, very strongly that it should leave off Uncanny X-Men 530 to 534, which is called Quarantine. It was written by Matt Fraction, but co-plotted by Kieran Gillen, and it feels much more similar to the Kieran Gillen stuff that happens afterwards. I know that Marvel hasn't collected that way in the past, but this book is big enough that I'm hoping they'll just slide it over to the Kieran Gillen book. But this is where I would put Sword. Oh no, there it is right there. Sword 1 through 5, because Beast leaves to go and do Sword, I think from Uncanny X-Men 519. So it happens before Second Coming. So even though it's by Gillen and Fraction are doing a lot of teaming up, co-plotting and stuff during this era, I think you can't be too precious about moving a couple things back and forth. I love this. This is some of my favorite X-Men material of all time. I think it's an amazing read. It's been out of print way too long. It's so hard to get. This basically we put together 3 oversized hardcovers of the Nation X hardcover, the Second Coming hardcover, and the Second Coming Revelations hardcover, but also include some additional connecting stuff. If this were to be a short Omni, I put it on the back as an extra, but I think this would be packed. Choosing Sides is Regenesis. Yes. So we're talking about the last one. I hopefully somebody leaves me a comment later so I remember to notate that on Crushing Crisis. All right, now we're out of an X-Men zone and we're going to get into some different stuff, I think. I don't remember. I'm a goldfish. So this is the Marvel UK Companion. Crisis pick number 46. This is all of the Marvel UK books that don't fit into three big obvious lines, which are Dark Angel, Death's Head 2, and Motormouth and Kill Power. But there's a lot of stuff I enjoy in here. This would be a very hard sell. I don't know who would buy it. I don't know how Marvel would market it. I don't know how Marvel would market the other three Marvel UK books, but that's not my problem. I'm just a voter. I want this so damn bad. I have every one of these single issues. It's basically three different sections. It's the gene pool, which are all these like genetic, it's kind of like Marvel UK trying to do their own version of mutants, sort of. So that's that first chunk. Then the second chunk is basically just Warheads. Warheads is almost long enough to have an omnibus of itself. Would that ever sell an omnibus? No. So we're going to put it in here. And then there's basically 27 issues of other stuff, which is Black Axe, Super Soldier, Shadow Risers, Plasma, and Digitech. I snuck Wild Thing into the Dark Angel map, which I think makes sense because she later teams up with Dark Angel. The only book that would be left off from all of Marvel UK is Cyberspace 3000. I don't know if it would fit here because 18 plus 18 is 36 plus 27 is 63. So we're already kind of at the top end of omnibus size, but Cyberspace 3000 is set in the future. It's not in continuity. So we could just abandon it, or 8 more issues to take us to 71. Probably would keep this in the 1500 page range. So it could be done, but I love Marvel UK. It's never been collected. And I put a high priority on Marvel addressing books that have never been collected. Plus, I own it all in single issues. So of course they should make the omnibus so that I can have bought all those single issues for nothing. Yes, in my accounting, I think Fraction Volume 1 has plenty of room to end with the complete utopia. It makes perfect sense. Basically, you have Uncanny X-Men 500 to wherever that goes through, 512 or 513, and then all of Utopia. So you sell that book on it being Utopia. You sell this book on it being Second Coming. I strongly. Oh, JM, your ears must be burning because I just spent the past 20 minutes talking about how smart you are. So you missed all that. Sorry. Okay. Given the Knights of Pendragon sold so well, I'm sure this is on the way. John, don't break my heart, John. Don't say things that are a knife to my heart. Okay. Shot to the heart. That's not even in the right key. Okay, we're going to continue. Number 45, X-Men Solo, Nate Gray, The X-Man, Volume 1. I have this explicitly mapped on Crushing Crisis. I've been through every issue. I know where his every guest appearance fits, and this is straight from that map. Yes, a lot of this has been collected in his classic collections and in a trade that he splits with Cable, but it's never been coherently collected all in one place. I think you would start with his Age of Apocalypse material because him being alive in the Age of Apocalypse has to do with who he is. So I think this would double dip those first 4 issues from Age of Apocalypse. I ultimately actually want the second omnibus more, but it would never stand alone. It doesn't make sense on its own. So I think we got to just start with this Volume 1 and collect the first 33 issues of his series. Of course, his series ran a very surprising 75 issues. Nobody realizes how long it was. And so it's the perfect size to collect into 2 omnibuses. X-Men, yes, Omnibo wants it. James Rhodes bought that Knights of Pendragon, as did I. I've always wanted to read those Knights of Pendragon issues, and I do have them in singles, but I was like, whoa, an omnibus? I'm actually going to do it. Yeah, X-Men, I'm not saying, Jarm, that any of my votes are votes that are good votes or votes that are books that Marvel would ever print. These are my votes. Mwah, for me. So, yeah, I think this would be a hard sell. Omnibo has every issue of this. JM21 loves X-Men. What's he doing nowadays? He is living in his pocket reality with a shard of Magneto's soul to keep him company. And I'm usually not that good at continuity notes like that, but I do remember that quite explicitly. Okay, number 44, and I expect this to be top 10 on the poll this year. For me, it's number 44, which is X-Force by Kyle and Yost. Why is it only number 44? We already have this entirely in oversized hardcover. If you have a shelf with the 2 Kyle and Yost hardcovers and the Sex and Violence oversized hardcover and the Necrotia oversized hardcover and the Messiah War oversized hardcover, you already have this. So it's not my most top priority, but this would actually just be those hardcovers. The end. The only thing it could do in addition to that, kind of sweeten the deal, and I think I like when Marvel sweetens the deal a little bit to incent somebody like me who owns those hardcovers to buy again, is I think it maybe could just have the New Mutants Necrotia arc, because it kind of is closer to the heart of this. At that point, I know you're rolling your eyes and you're like, just put the X-Men Legacy stuff in there too. But X-Men Legacy is just Rogue's team doing like an away mission during Necrotia. New Mutants is happening on Utopia. So it just feels a little closer, but obviously your mileage may vary. I also think this should include Hulk 14 to 18, which is the only appearance X-Force makes outside of their own book. And I know it's written by Jeff Loeb and it's like in a totally different book, but it fits in continuity with this perfectly. And it just bugs me that it's never been collected with X-Force. So I think it's a chance to get it into this book. I would absolutely buy this on day one. I absolutely would. It's just not my top priority because I have it all in oversized hardcover already. But I know so many of you have this. Oh, people are going off about X-Man. Freddie Alonso, my friend, my darling Freddie, is an X-Man when he dates an alternate universe of his mom. But Robert jumps right in and says, no, not an alternative universe version of his mom, an alternate universe version of a clone of his mom, which means she's totally okay to kiss. And JM21, yeah, the Nate Maddie relationship was weird. Okay, let's continue. My 43 is X Factor, the original X-Men Volume 3. I can't say that I'm not excited about this. I'm excited because it's going to fill a gap in my shelf. These issues are not great. I respect that they stopped at the end of Judgment War for Volume 2. Personally, I would have seen if maybe they could have just made it all the way to Volume 3. But since Volume 3 has to be its own book, how can we justify that? Well, it's going to have Prisoner of Love in oversized for the first time. Amazing. I think it could also have, and this actually, all this extra stuff almost certainly came from the brain of JM21 because I didn't know this. It could have Marvel Comics 85 to 92. It could have a Cyclops and Jean story from New Mutants Annual 7. It could have another Artie and Leech story, and it would have the Muir Island crossover issues. It would have some of Days of Future Past, only the parts that are relevant to X Factor, some of the Kings of Pain story, although most of that is not relevant to X Factor. Also, I think it should have Uncanny X-Men 273, which is the first issue after the end of Extinction Agenda, which is like, what are we going to do with all these X-Men? Because it kind of like teases that maybe they're all just going to reunite and be one happy family. And then, which you might think based on Extinction Agenda. And then half the team, the X-Men side, gets teleported to Mars or wherever by Lila Cheney, Shi'ar space, and X Factor's kind of left behind to pick up the pieces. So I think you would want that issue here. So no, I'm not terribly excited about it, but we do need it in oversized, so it would be a chance to get it all in one place. I don't think this will collect all of Extinction Agenda. I just don't. It could fit it. It's 6 more issues, but at that point, we're going to have Extinction Agenda in this book, the actual Extinction Agenda book. We're eventually going to have it in the Uncanny X-Men Masterworks line when it gets that far. And I think it's going to be all in New Mutants Volume 4. So this is my attempt to not have a 4th omnibus with Extinction Agenda. I don't think I guess you kind of do have to have it though, because it resolves the Cameron Hodge plot. I wasn't thinking about that when I wrote that note that it was least relevant to this book. So maybe you do have all of Extinction Agenda. Oh, well. Okay. This is a book that I feel strongly about the map. I've mapped this myself personally. I really think it's a good book. It's huge, but it's worth it. This would be Gambit Volume 1. I don't know if it could go this far, which is why we said Volume 1. It could have to be broken into 2. All of Gambit's starring solo turns in this period really form a great story about Gambit. So he's in Moon Knight for a couple of issues. He appears in Nomad for an issue. He's in Web of Spider-Man. He's in Ghost Rider. I think every time he pops up, it's worth collecting because he's actually written very consistently, and it's clear that people are excited to get a chance to write him. So this would have all of that material interwoven with Gambit's first miniseries from 1993, the Rogue miniseries, which is really just another Gambit miniseries, and then his 1997 miniseries. And then finally, we get to the guts of this book, which is a pretty lengthy run of Gambit 1999, 1 through 25, plus there's annuals, plus there's a cyber comic, plus there's a 0.5. So you could very validly argue that this is 2 books. One of the book is Gambit the Classic Years, that has everything before that series. And then the second book is Gambit Volume 2 by Fabian Nicieza, which would have all of that. I completely agree. But on the poll, we tried to give titles that were vaguer so people could just make their own decisions. Some people don't want all this side bullshit in this book. Some people mostly just want his debut 2 issues, his 2 miniseries, and then straight to his 1999 series, which would easily fit into one omnibus. And so we just called it Gambit Volume 1, 1991, Choose Your Own Adventure. Personally, if it was this map, I would be very, very excited. James Robe saying, Gambit by Fabian Nicieza absolutely deserves an omnibus. I agree. I just think it should be even bigger than that. My number 141 pick is Darkhawk, 1991 to 1995. Again, following my rule that I tend to prioritize things that have never been fully collected. Darkhawk ran for 50 issues. And I think we have one Darkhawk Classic trade. So much of this is uncollected. And at 50 issues plus 3 annuals plus an annual crossover through Assault on Armor City, this is a big one. Could we collect some of his other appearances like in New Warriors 14 or an Amazing Spider-Man or Amazing Spider-Man and His Friends and Enemies? It's already a big book. Generally, I think before 60 issues, we're talking within the realm of possibilities. So of those, I think probably Amazing Spider-Man, Friends and Enemies is the one that maybe would fit into here. But Marvel has shown that occasionally when they're trying to do everything all in one book, they'll even go bigger than that, especially because we ain't ever going to sell a second Dark Hork. I don't know why I keep saying it like that. I don't think we're ever going to sell a second Dark Hork omnibus. So I think you got to go big or go home on this one. Freddy as Darkhawk at number 1. Catch R as Darkhawk at number 1. Jamie C47, Darkhawk Hive Rise Up. Saz Murph didn't vote for Darkhawk, but absolutely would buy it. Dr. Zero, Darkhawk. Am I from Boston now? Darkhawk Oipaka is number 3. A lot of people hype for Darkhawk. I expect it to do very well. Could it break the top 20 this year? I think it'll be in the top half of the top 60 on the official results. I don't know if it's going to make it to top 20. But so many people voted number 1. Number 1 votes are what push things the highest on the poll. My number 40 pick, I could see a world in which I voted for this higher, is Marvel's Contest of Champions. Why? Because Marvel Contest of Champions 1982 1-3 is the only Marvel event that is not in an oversized format. I think it's been in a gallery edition, but that doesn't fit on a shelf with my other oversized hardcovers, Marvel. So I need it in a normal oversized hardcover format. But there's other things we could put into this. There was sort of some sequel material and a pair of annuals, and there's Contest of Champions 2 in 1999 by Chris Claremont, another Marvel event that we're missing, although that was in a, I believe, a Marvel Universe by Claremont omnibus, but we could just put it here with the original Contest of Champions. Plus, then we could have a place for Contest of Champions 2015 1-10 by Al Ewing, which we've mapped a couple different places, but that's kind of the third Contest of Champions, so it could fit here. Actually, if you want to get crazy, really the fourth Contest of Champions is No Surrender, Avengers No Surrender, which is absolutely another Contest of Champions story. So you could have all 4 of the big Contest of Champions from throughout Marvel history with so many huge characters spanning over, 40 years of comic books all in one book. But what I care the most about is I want that 1982 series in omnibus. Okay. Is Darkhawk relevant somewhere currently? Well, I guess we'll see if he turns up in the Hickman Imperial, I guess. We'll see. John S. Pointing out that the Marvel's Contest of Champions will be in the Hulk Marvel Masterworks line, but I am not buying a whole Hulk Marvel Masterworks based omnibus just for these 3 issues. I'm going to buy a whole separate omnibus just for these 3 issues. Okay. My number 39 pick is one that I've seen a lot of you mention. It is Power Pack by Gurihiru. It is so charming. It all looks just like this cover. And it's basically a series of 4-issue miniseries with Power Pack just teaming up with every different possible X-Men, Avengers, Spider-Man, Hulk. They just make their way through the whole Marvel universe. And it's adorable. It is not in continuity with actual Power Pack because this stuff kind of spans. They're younger. It has characters that debuted after their series was over. Don't think about it too hard. It's its own pocket continuity. So it's not really Power Pack Volume 3. It's Power Pack by Gurihiru. Gurihiru is so huge right now, thanks not only to them being masterful. It's 2 people, by the way, 2, I believe, women who are artists together. Not only are they so masterful right now, but they're also huge now because of Jeff. So let's capitalize. If Jeff is big right now, this is the perfect time to sell them doing other cute comic books. I just think that now's the time. Strike while the iron is hot. I've read some of this with my kid. I will say it's not totally all ages because it's just got some kind of romance and cheating and mystique duping people stuff that just didn't feel super appropriate for Kid Crisis when she was 6 to 8. But I was I don't love some of these plots, even though otherwise this is an all ages comic book. I think it's fine for 8 and up. I just think it has some kind of romancy, double crossy stuff, which maybe isn't perfect for a 6-year-old. I think it's fine for 8 or 9 and up. And Marvel doesn't have a lot of incentive to do YA type comics and omnibus because that's not who buys omnibuses, but I would absolutely buy this one and I would love it in addition to giving it to Kid Crisis. I think there's one oversized Power Pack that collects some of these, but then it never continued. It's definitely in my Power Pack guide. Freddie would love this. Amazing covers on this. JJ Tiffany would buy it as a volume 3 and buy Gurihiru D1. I love Power Pack. Ryan North's Power Pack is, yes, it is in continuity, Freddie. It's in continuity to Outlawed. It happens during the Outlawed event. Why would you say it's not in continuity? Boo. Boo, Freddie. Boo to you. I can say that because Freddie's my friend. Okay. Okay, continuing. My pick number 38. You are gonna laugh at me. And then, by the way, this has the newest material out of any pick on my top 60. It is Deadpool and X-Force Baddest Blood, which is a title of my own invention, by Rob Liefeld. Why? There are these two X-Force series in 2004 and 2005 at the end of New X-Men when we get into that Claremont Reloaded period. X-Force 1 through 6 and X-Force Shatterstar 1 through 4. They're never going to be in an omnibus. You won't put them at the end of the X-Force omnibuses that collect the 1991 series because all of Ecstatics comes after that. I mean, you could, and maybe you would, to sell them by saying, oh, and Liefeld. But I just don't think it makes sense there. Or you could argue for putting them on the end of New Mutants Volume 4, since that's going to have a bunch of Liefeld stuff on it. But that's basically saying, oh, by the way, skip all of 1991 X-Force to get to these 10 extra Liefeld issues. Although now that I say it, maybe that will be how they pad out New Mutants Volume 4. However, this is a chance to basically collect everything that Liefeld did at from 2000 to present day from Marvel, because it would have Deadpool Bad Blood, Deadpool Badder Blood, Major X, Deadpool Team Up, all of which is unreadable garbage. But I really want those 10 issues. And I just don't, I think it makes the most sense to put them in an all Liefeld book that's all post 2000. So that's why I have this all together. Okay. So Freddie is making the case for why Ryan North's Power Pack is out of continuity, because North retconned that the parents forgot the secret identities. I just think there's so many other reasons for people to forget secret identities in the Marvel universe that I'm not going to get too hung up on that, but okay. And Robert Secund is with what to me reads as a clear vote for buying this book, Deadpool and X-Force Baddest Blood. Okay, this book, I forget who on the mapping team mapped this. It sounds like it could have been Brand XK, who said, do you know there's enough Apocalypse after, or not Apocalypse, there's enough Dracula after Tomb of Dracula to do a whole other book. So then we started looking into it. There's so much Dracula. It's not just Tomb of Dracula from 1991. There's another Tomb of Dracula from 1994 or 2004. Then there's The Death of Dracula, #1. He fought Apocalypse for a miniseries. There's all of his appearances in The Curse of the Mutants with X-Men. Then he fights Hulk during Fear Itself. Like, there's plenty of extra Dracula to do. And then there's all these like appearances he made in Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, Marvel Comics Presents. There's like a whole modern book of Dracula that pretty much takes us all the way up to his participation in Jason Aaron's Avengers. I would buy this. I am totally into Dracula. I love Dracula from any publisher, any medium. He's one of my favorite things to read about in fiction. And I think that this would be really fun. If there's any kind of vampire comeback, if vampires make their like 5th comeback in the past 40 years, and there's a new kind of like vampire surge, I think Marvel would put this out and just capitalize on the excitement. Liefeld, I say Liefeld, but the way I remember it to how to say it is Liefeld, because I remember it's lie, and that's how I remember how to spell it. But I don't know. Okay. So now let's continue. My number 36 pick is a very obvious pick for me. It's X-Men: The Silver Age, Volume 3, aka The Lost Years, aka Darkest Before the Dawn. We already had me holding up those two masterworks that are what could be in this book. But there are some things outside of the masterworks we could include in this. There's some additional Magneto material that we could put into this that I think makes sense. And also, as one of the commenters pointed out, you could probably get all of the champions into this if you wanted to, which makes sense because that's where Beast goes. I would just like this on the shelf. Again, I clearly already own it. It's also an epic collection, but I just place a high priority onto filling in gaps in the shelf. I will say, though, you've got to add something extra to it, or otherwise it's just the epic collection. And that this has so much of that material in it, Darkest Purple of the Dawn, that you got to do something. It can't just be an omnibus of this, which is why I'm an advocate for it picking up some additional material. Robert Secundus thinks between Nosferatu and Sinners, vampires are back, or have they ever left? But I agree. It does feel like now is the time to strike while the iron is hot and get out that Dracula. Buffy fights Dracula in the first episode of Buffy season 3 or 4 or 5. 3, 4, or 5. I need somebody who's a bigger Buffy buff than me to remember, but she absolutely does fight canonical Dracula in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Slightly unrelated, but where would Apocalypse versus Dracula be collected in the X-Men Omnis, a Frank Thierry omnibus? I think you could probably include it in the Milligan years, because I think it's where Apocalypse is right before or right after Blood of Apocalypse, or you could have the death of Dracula in a collection of Victor Gischler's X-Men 2010, because basically that sets up what's going on with vampires right before that starts. So I think two different books. I don't think you would put the death of Dracula into the Milligan Omnibus. I don't think you would put Apocalypse versus Dracula. Well, you might put Apocalypse versus Dracula into the Gischler Omnibus, because it's so much about vampire plots. It basically begins and ends with Jubilee's vampire plot that I actually think that maybe that would be a good pick. And my Buffy buffs have showed up. It is the first episode of season 5, when she fights Dracula. Exterminators miniseries to be added to the Dracula Modern book. Ooh, maybe, yeah. Well, he's not really the star of that, which is why we left it off the list. But yeah, he absolutely stars in that, and it can absolutely be. Again, this was the titles poll. The maps are me saying what I think the book should be with the help of amazing, smart people like JM and Brand. Okay, my number 35 pick. Again, this is filling in a gap, and it's something that's never been oversized. It's Uncanny X-Men by Kelly and Siegel. This used to be on the poll every single year, the early years of the poll. Then they finally did these two trades, which, fun fact, I believe the two trades were the last uncollected in color Uncanny X-Men material that existed at that point to finally come out and trade. It has nothing to do with Blue and Gold. The trades were called Blue Volume 0 and Gold Volume 0. You would not call this that. So this would collect actually a pretty slim, it's about a year of X-Men, a year of Uncanny X-Men, but together that immediately gets us to 30 issues, which is kind of a lot. There's also the Liberators miniseries, which actually does fit in reading order here, so I think you would put it here. The Blue Gold trades omit the issues Unlimited, but the X-Men Omnibus line has always collected all of Unlimited. So I think you would have X-Men Unlimited 19, 20, and 21 here, even though they're about characters that are not currently starring in this run, because 20 is about Generation X and 21 is about X Factor. I think you'd still put them here to create that unbroken run of X-Men Unlimited all in one place. My number 34 is the book that would come directly before that book, I think, yes, which is X-Men The Trial of Gambit, which follows Onslaught Aftermath. Onslaught Aftermath, another book that was meant to be bigger originally and originally was going to contain all the way through this. Then they realized how much stuff could get added to that book. They split it into two. So what's left here? Well, what's left is about 10 issues each of Uncanny X-Men and of X-Men, which is really not enough for an omnibus on its own. However, this could also have Gambit's 1997 miniseries. It could also have the Imperial Guard miniseries. It could also have Psylocke and Archangel, Crimson Dawn. Now we're getting into a bigger book. And if you wanted to, you could call this Zero Tolerance and basically have the entire existing Zero Tolerance oversized hardcover inside of this. Zero Tolerance only really hit Adjectiveless X-Men 1991. It didn't hit Uncanny X-Men at all, really. There's like one issue that kind of sort of ties into it. So I do think it would be really weird to like pause on reading all of the main X-Men stuff and just read all of Zero Tolerance. But Zero Tolerance is a really big story for X-Men, and it's been adapted into other media, especially with X-Men 97. So there could be an argument for it here. I don't have a super strong opinion either way. I know what Uncanny X-Men and Adjectiveless X-Men issues this would have to collect. So I'm like, well, you could put Zero Tolerance in it, or you could not put Zero Tolerance in it. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it could work. JJ Tiffany saying Zero Tolerance would be perfect to add to this book. And Chris saying mine would be a Magic book. We have that on the poll, and you still have 1 hour and 6 minutes to vote on the Tigereyes poll. Sorry, I didn't link it in the description here, but James has put the description in the chat, and you can easily find it linked from Crushing Crisis or from Near Mint Condition. But you have an hour and 6 minutes left, and there is a Magic Omnibus to vote for on that poll. I would call it Zero Tolerance. They had Zero Tolerance in with Gambit 350. Yeah, I think that's a perfect thing that you could do. And there is James giving you a link for the poll. The poll will close while I'm still talking on the stream. So you can't wait for me to get done talking and then vote. If you haven't voted yet, you've got to vote. Jamie C47 saying Zero Tolerance is honestly the only main X story I like from this post-apocalypse up till Morrison era. Well, here's a chance to recollect it again into Omnibus, because that original book's only an oversized hardcover. My number 33 pick is Wolverine being horny for Nightcrawler. It is Wolverine Marvel Knights 2002 and all on. I'm not even going to get into the map for this. We did a 4-hour, I think, Map My X about how to map all this stuff. The reason it's such a controversy, and the reason I will just tease, slightly tickle your fancy about why it's hard to understand and describe, is because Greg Rucka writes issues 1 through 19 and then Mark Millar takes over through issue 32 to do Enemy of the State, which we've had collected in many formats already. But then after Miller, we go back to then Daniel Way writes for 6 issues, which would obviously be collected with his Wolverine Origins because it's the kind of arc 0 of that. And then after that, we have a number of Civil War tie-in issues. And then it kind of goes into like random people randomly writing stuff through the end of the run. So the big question here is like, would it actually continuously just collect all of Wolverine 2003 throughout? Or would it take the perspective of only collecting the Greg Rucka stuff and then collecting a bunch of like Marvel Knights more mature Wolverine takes alongside the Greg Rucka stuff? There's 100 different ways you could map this. I think we worked out a pretty good version on New Roman Condition, so I endorse you going to see that. I just want to see them get started. I love the Rucka run. It's one of the best runs of Wolverine of all time, in my opinion, and I really want to see it in omnibus. It's been in a paperback complete collection, but even that is long out of print at this point. Chris, you could go vote for Spider-Girl too on the poll. You will, spoilers, Spider-Girl is not on my list. I don't really read alternate reality. Even X-Men alternate reality is a hard sell for me. So Spider-Girl is not one of my picks, but it is on the overall poll. Tall Perry saying, hell yeah, this is in your top 5, or maybe the prior book. I didn't see when you posted that comment. And Richard Bradley saying, I think X-Men 97 pretty much forces them to put zero tolerance in there. That was my thinking too. Like, if they have the chance to market zero tolerance again and put Bastion on the cover, then they're going to do it. And of course, you could do that already just by having the issues of X-Men adjective lists that are in here, because they're all zero tolerance issues and Bastion is on the cover. But I do think it's an excuse to just put all of that in there. It's not all X-Men, but it's a lot of X-Men, because this is truthfully what I would buy. And like, I will always buy X-Men omnibuses before the year 2000 and many before 2012. But I'm telling you, as we get higher, the X-Men books are going to get thin, because I put the highest priority on stuff that hasn't been collected already. And a lot of X-Men has already been collected. Perfect. If they don't do this cover, it's a crime against humanity. I love this cover so much. Omnibus saying Wolverine Marvel Knights could also include the Spider-Man crossover where he nearly hooked up with Mary Jane. Yeah, so I do think there's so many different ways that you could map this. Hello to Richard Fearing and hello to Richard Bradley. This cover cracks me up. No idea how they... Yeah, and he said Ribic has said that he literally wrote it to imply the thing that it implies. JJ Tiffany asking, would I say Rucka is a top 5 writer for me? I think yes. You know what's funny? I don't love his Wonder Woman, which is, even though Wonder Woman's my favorite character, but I love his Wolverine. Lazarus is my favorite comic book of all time, pretty much. I really like Rucka's sensibility. You know, he has a very specific style where he writes real human feeling characters and he'll put them through it, but it's never cynical. There's always a hint that there could be a better world in a Rucka book, and cynicism does not appeal to me. Even in the darkest, lowest, most dystopian Rucka book, there's a glint that it matters to still be a human and to still try, and I think that appeals to me across all of Rucka's books. My next pick, number 32, we're not even to the top half of my picks, X-Men, the Messiah Complex. I think this would not only include the Messiah Complex and also endangered species at the beginning of the book, but I think it would probably also collect the immediate epilogue to Messiah Complex, which was Uncanny X-Men 495 to 499, which is the end of Brubaker's run. They've never collected along with Fraction. I've given up that ghost. Let the Fraction Omnibus just start with issue 500. It's a blockbuster issue, but this could also pick up the Divided We Stand 2-issue anthology limited series of stories of various X-Men after this. And it also could, if they wanted to, pick up the Get Mystique arc of Wolverine 2003, which is a direct epilogue to the events of Messiah Complex. So I think this is a high demand book. I think it's been out of print for long enough that people want it. And this also fills the spot for me of collecting things better than they've been collected before, because that post-Messiah Complex stuff by Brubaker has been so abandoned in the past that, it's only ever really been in a trade, I think. So this is a great shot to finally get it oversized in addition to combining those two existing oversized hardcovers. And you'll find a lot of my votes, I think I've been pretty consistent, are things that could kind of zhuzh up or improve on a pair or more than a pair of existing hardcovers already. That's always great incentive for me to write an omnibus. Whose Cheetah series? If this is Greg Rucka writing Cheetah, yes, I am very excited. I have no idea about that. What's my favorite Wonder Woman runs? I love Bronze Age Wonder Woman a ton. Not Diana Prince, just 70s. I just think it's fun. She's just Wonder Woman being Wonder Woman. They have the popularity of the show to kind of spur them on to really make her a cool starring character and an action star. I, of course, love George Perez Wonder Woman. I love William Mr. Loeb's and Mike Deodato Wonder Woman. I don't have a lot of post-2000 Wonder Woman favorites. I really liked G. Willow Wilson's run on Wonder Woman. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was perfect. Wonder Woman is love. Like everybody wants her to be a warrior woman, but she's a warrior woman because she is love. And I think G. Willow Wilson understood that in a way that very few people other than her have understood. And then I actually really like Superman Wonder Woman in New 52. I feel like so often, like that was the first time I've ever seen Wonder Woman and Superman treated totally equally as characters, equally as powerful, equally as strong and motivating plot, truly equals to one another. Some people are like, oh, it was disgusting to have Superman and Wonder Woman date. Yeah, but that was an idea that even stretches back to Perez and Byrne in the post-crisis area. It was just made quite literal during New 52. But I think all of that book is just really fun to read. If you don't get too, I never get too caught up in ships. There's very few ships in comics that I'm going to go, ew, gross, I don't like it, unless it's like age inappropriate. And even then, it's a comic book. Like, just let them tell the damn story. So yeah, Wonder Woman and Superman doesn't like squick me out enough that I would not dig it. I don't hate Rucka's Wonder Woman run. The thing is, I don't know his first Wonder Woman run front to back. I've read it in so many pieces over the years because I've been in single issues that I need to just sit down and read the whole thing and like reform my opinion. And then the run in Rebirth, I just don't like runs that skip back and forth in continuity. I don't like when runs do like an origin issue and then a present day, an origin, present day. It just like bothers me. And that was what that run did. So it was a really high quality run, great storytelling. Also, it changed some things about Perez's continuity, which to me is like the holy Bible of Wonder Woman. I think Perez should just be what her origin is forever. So the fact that Rucka was very gently tinkering with that made me a little bit averse to it. I fully expect Messiah Complex to be top 15 on the actual poll. Yes. Richard Bradley met Rucka because of Wolverine. I'm like, why are we still talking about Greg Rucka? Met him at Thought Bubble years ago and got him to sign Gotham Central. I never care if artists are nice people. I assume they aren't generally, but it does warm my heart. He has a Discord, by the way, that's mostly like a Lazarus Discord, but he just kind of pops in and says what he's doing and like when his books are coming out and stuff. I don't go on it all the time. That's a really cool community. So if you like him, I think it usually links to it in the back matter of Lazarus. Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott. Oh, I saw the announcement of Cheetah and Cheshire Rob the Justice League, but I didn't see who was on it. Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott is appointment television for me. Somewhere back here, I have my trades of Black Magic, one of my favorite series, because Nicola Scott could be drawn this hair and this face beautifully. So yeah, I am so hype. And Chris, while you're here, apparently you haven't been here for my pull list shows, because anybody in the comments can tell you that I absolutely hate the current run of Uncanny X-Men to the point that I have dropped Uncanny X-Men for the first time in my actively comic buying life because I think it is such a bad comic book. Okay, let's continue on the actual poll picks. We're not even into the top half yet. And we're at the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, although I did talk about all those other things at the beginning. Okay, my number 31 pick, although for many of you, your number 1 pick, is Uncanny X-Men by Chuck Austen, baby. Give it to me. This book would collect Uncanny X-Men 410 through 443. It could continue to his run on New X-Men 155. Well, it would absolutely have New X-Men 155 and 156, which is him kind of putting an epilogue on his X-Men and weirdly also on Grant Morrison's New X-Men. But then he continues writing it after New comes off the adjective and it's just X-Men 1991, 157 through 164. I actually think that's like a kind of a strange fit with this book. I would rather just put that in with the Milligan book because it's the same cast members. But I will always go to bat for this run. I think people hate it just because it's popular, hate it because it had 2 or 3 bad plot twists in it. It had Azrael as Nightcrawler's dad, which nobody really liked in retrospect. It had Angel and Husk having sex in midair in front of her entire family, which is that one. That's a ship I maybe can't get totally excited about. And it had Havoc's failed wedding. So it had, but the thing is, it's X-Men is soap opera. The reason you all like X-Men is because X-Men is a soap opera. That's why people started reading it during Claremont. That's why people like the animated series. This is peak X-Men is soap opera. He is on the record. Austen is on the record saying, I just was trying to write a soap opera with X-Men characters. And it was different than the other things that were happening at the time, which were New X-Men and Extreme X-Men, which had totally different flavors. So that Chuck Austen didn't have to do that. He could do his own thing. So I think it's about time to get this in omnibus. I'm ready to buy it. I'm excited. The only reason it's not in my top 10 and is back here at number 31 is because it already completely has been collected in original trades and in 3 really chunky, very well made, relatively recent trade paperbacks that could have just been epic collections. So I'm sure we're going to get epic collections of it next. So it's not high priority for me because it exists. Robert Secunda saying, Austen Uncanny has some bad twists, but it all feels like X-Men and it takes big swings and it feels more daring than a lot coming out today. I could not have said it better myself. Richard Bradley's got to get off to bed, but thank you so much for joining us, Richard. It's really great to see you here in the comments. Nick N needs help currently mapping the story of the quantum bands. Oh my goodness. I don't think any one page of mine would help you with that because you have to track who they go to. Like it's Captain Marvel and then it's like Rick Jones and this is like Quasar have them for a while? I don't know. I would have to really sit down and do some thinking. Okay, let's continue. Crisis pick number 30. This is one where I think I got the mapping wrong. The title of this, let's title this video, Why I Was Wrong About Mapping Submariner Golden Age. And then we'll get all the clicks, right? Because everybody loves Submariner Golden Age drama. I said that this should just start collecting the Golden Age Submariner Masterworks because the issues were so long. I thought it would only collect issues 1 through 12, which is how a lot of the Golden Age books work. However, somebody pointed out to me that if you look at the difference between the Submariner, the pre-war years, and the Submariner, the post-war years omnibuses, they basically have an exact omnibus size gap in the middle of them, which is basically Submariner comics 5 to 20. And then there's a few random issues that were not by Everett after that, which it could pick up as well. So why spend the time on material that is not super popular recollecting things on either of those two omnibuses? Why not just collect the war years? Well, luckily, the year range in this title pretty much lets you just think this is the war years omnibus if you want it to be. So I am officially voting for this. Well, not officially because it's number 30 and you only get 10 votes. But officially, I would vote for it to be Submariner, the war years omnibus, because that way we would have actually almost all of Golden Age Submariner in omnibus, including this early stuff and including the later stuff, which to me is the perfect answer. And it would be the first Marvel comic book character that we have all of in the Golden Age, which would be pretty exciting. Omnibo is a big Namor fan. Namor, I don't know. I guess we officially know. So guess what, kids? My number 29 is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because Marvel can print these books right now, but it is not Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 8, which I already have in library edition downstairs. It is the Buffy the Vampire Slayer comics from the late 90s, originally published by Dark Horse when they first got the license. Dark Horse put these out in paperback omnibuses, which was like their kind of short-sized collection omnibuses, but they have never been in proper omnibus oversized hardcover to the best of my knowledge. And there's a lot of them. Look at this paragraph. I don't expect you to parse it, but the story you need to know is that there were 63 regular issues and then over 20 issues of one-shots and miniseries, which doesn't even get into Angel, which would probably be its own separate book. I would love to read this. It was kind of meant to be in continuity to the Buffy TV show. The TV show doesn't super pay attention to this continuity, so it sometimes does stuff with certain characters that never, ever gets addressed in the TV show, but it's still pretty easy to read it as if it's an extension of the TV show. I just would be really excited to finally have this. I think it would probably be 2 or 3 volumes. Buffy sells books, so I think they would break it into 3, but there's a perfect chance to collect everything Buffy up until season 8, and I think that could all be done in this book. In retrospect, we missed adding 2 Buffy books to the poll. One Buffy book would have been Angel, the IDW years. I just don't think we had Angel after the fall, which is basically him at the same time as Buffy season 8, but there's so much IDW material for that before that it could be its own omnibus. I actually own it all, so we missed that, and we missed putting the Boom Comics years. I didn't really care because they were terrible, but they should still be on the poll, so that was a miss, and they will be on the poll next year. Omnibo would buy the hell out of this. Buffy, everybody's into it. Everybody loves Buffy, but One Wheel Tracks is still talking about Chuck Austin X-Men. Austin and Candy may be bad, but what this has over current things and like X-Men Gold is that it's memorable. That's true. It's bad and it's memorable. Bad and it's memorable. I think the only show that I've seen more times than Buffy is probably X-Files, and which speaks a lot to my age and my era. Okay, we're getting close to my votes that actually counted. This is number 28, Alpha Flight, the Modern Years. This is one that we deliberately left loose on the poll because there's a question of how far the omnibus before this could get. If Marvel needs 2 omnibuses to finish Alpha Flight 1983, they're going to be 2 smaller omnibuses that are only in the 30 to 40 issue range. In that case, I think actually they might put all of the 1997 series in those omnibuses, and then we probably would never even get an Alpha Flight omnibus for Alpha Flight 2004 and on. The problem is everything Alpha Flight's done since 2004 and on has never been longer than 12 issues. They were their own team. They get killed in Avengers. Then there's Omega Flight. Then they are the Weapon Omega is the backup story Marvel Comics presents. Then they have another one shot. Then they have a 9-issue series. They just never have enough stuff to be an omnibus on its own. So I think you could collect that all together. However, if Marvel could finish all of Alpha Flight 1983 with a 3rd volume, which is within the realm of possibility, we just talked about it on Omar's stream, then this probably has enough room to fit all of Alpha Flight 1997. Personally, what I want really bad and what this vote from me is really for is all of Alpha Flight 1997, which has never been collected. Never. All of that other stuff has been collected. Alpha Flight 1997 has never been collected. It could fit into one paperback if Alpha Flight paperback sold anything. So that is why I would be excited about this one. Just a couple of questions in the chat. JJ Tiffany saying, would Buffy sell more than both Simpsons and Indiana Jones? I think Buffy's fan base is massive and their affection for the original years of Buffy is huge. So I think if you actually marketed it in the book market and made it visible to people and showed that it was like stories from the original era of Buffy, yeah, I do think there's some built-in sales there that even Indiana Jones doesn't necessarily have. Buffy fans are rabid. They are rabid. I say that as a Buffy fan. I'm talking about myself. Nick Martin making a bold prediction that he thinks 2026 will include both X-Men Legacy by Carrie and Punisher by Rucka. Certainly they're going to do very, very well on the poll. Here's the thing, Crumry, that you have to think about. Let me put it this way. As soon as something happens in the MCU, the comics about that thing get more popular and change the match to the MCU, because there are tens of millions of people watching each MCU entry. There are at best a couple 100,000 people reading any given comic book by the time it's, original release, digital, trade paperback, whatever. So the movie audience is orders of magnitude bigger, right? So if we look at any media property like The Simpsons, the orders of magnitude audience of The Simpsons compared to comic books is so many orders of magnitude bigger. Now, are Simpsons fans hardcore enough that they buy every single thing the way like a Buffy fan does? Not necessarily. But there's enough of them, and there are enough big Simpsons fans that have been big Simpsons fans over the course of 30 plus years that there is absolutely a bigger audience for a Simpsons omnibus than an X-Men omnibus. Okay. So Sun Here, Fire and Big Hero 6. You've heard me go off about this before, JM. Technically, they could do that. They just have to get the permission of Steven Seagal, right? Who wrote that, because it's his studio that owns the rights to those comics. Yes, I agree. They do belong there. There's just some question as to whether Marvel would reprint that along with their own material, or if Big Hero 6 would always need to be printed on its own. Okay, let's continue. My number 27 pick is a very popular one that I talked myself into by personally doing the map, which is Inhumans, the early years. I had this in 2 different books last year on the poll. It seems silly. I will tell you, if they put everything in this box in one book, it would be 1,700 pages, which can't happen. We've seen books as big as 1,632 pages. So we'd only have to leave out 3 issues from this. And honestly, do you need every single one of their early appearances in the Fantastic Four, which have been double dipped in the Fantastic Four line? Maybe not. So I think there is a chance to cut off about 70 issues of this and make it fit into one book. Here's why this is so attractive. One of my big priorities, you've heard me say it several times, is things that are badly collected already. If you wanted all this on yourself, you would need 2 Inhumans Masterworks. You would need 3 small Inhumans trades, some of which are very out of print. And then even still, you would need a couple single issues that were not collected in those trades. That to me is a disaster. Anytime we can get an omnibus that coherently collects things that have been across multiple formats as the best collecting option, so in this case, Masterworks trade and single issues, to me, that is a good omnibus. Plus, this would be a great read. The Inhumans were popular amongst a certain subgroup of creators. And so every time those creators got their hands on them, they did something really cool with them. You could make the choice to break this into 2. I think that's fine. I think you could pick up more side appearances. You could have Quicksilver's, marriage to, Crystal in here as well. But I think you could also just stick to the core and probably get it all done in one book. Again, I cannot emphasize enough, this would be a fantastic read. There's so much cool Inhumans backstory before the year 1998. And this would basically take us all the way up to 1998, where that Marvel Knights series begins. I strongly recommend it. Kurume, is it Mai or May? Let me know. Kind of want to read this early in Inhumans. All sorts of people write this. All sorts of different people. Lots of different people. Freddie, all sorts of people are saying a lot of different things. Okay. Oh, now people are predicting my picks. Predict Crisis's crazy ass unpredictable picks. Number 26 is Punisher Classic. And here's my caveat on this. I only am interested in this if they break with the mapping of the Epic line. If they just put this first one out and it's clearly just following the Epic line mapping and it's only going to collect the main thread of Punisher at 1987, I don't care. However, if they do what they're doing in X-Men Blue and Gold, which I think there's incentive to do because there's only so many Punisher omnibuses you can sell, and they collect the whole line into that omnibus, which we would know because it would start collecting Punisher War Journal in that first volume, then I would buy it. I think there's the chance that Punisher War Journal would go off and be its own omnibus. Many people were like, you forgot it. No, we didn't forget it. Punisher did surprisingly not that well on the poll last year compared to last year's, and we thought it was because we split up too much. We mapped too much. There's not a mapping poll, it's a titles poll. So as a titles poll, we broke it down and we just say Punisher classic years, all one book. I think this is going to do very well this year. If Marvel actually mapped it that way or built it that way, and you would know from the map of the first one, because it would have War Journal in it, I would absolutely buy it. There are 104 issues of the main Punisher series. There are 84 issues of War Journal, I think, and there are 42 issues of Warzone, and there's a bunch of OGNs and one-shots. So if you add all those together, it's over 200 issues, approaching 250 issues if you include all the crossovers and things. So we probably need 5 to 6 omnibuses to cover all of Punisher from this period, and I just think that number of omnibuses gets longer if you try to separate the series from each other, because they're going to have to keep double dipping each other every time they get to a crossover between all 3 books. So I want this merged all in one. I would have told you it was a pipe dream reserved only for Spider-Man's clone years, because that's usually the only book Marvel's ever collected that way. But now that we've got the Blue and Gold X-Men omnibus, now that we've got the Dawn of X anthology omnibus, I truly believe Marvel might go for it. And so that is why this came very close to actually making it into my top 10 picks this year. All of 80s and 90s Punisher together. Yes, that is what we are looking for. Kuruma. Okay, I'm pronouncing it like it's French. May. Kuruma. Okay. Would love to see the NMC crew mappers debate Marvel mappers. Mappers on mappers. I think it's 6. I really think it's 5 or 6. I think it's 250 issues, and if they do 40 issues per omnibus, I think it's 6 omnibuses. That's what I think. I think you probably could title them by their big storylines. I think you would call the first 2 like Punisher Classic, maybe 1 and 2. Marvel seems like sometimes they can get away with a volume 2 if it's older material. And then I think you would just title them by whatever the big storyline or the big OGN is in every one. Punisher Countdown, Punisher this, Punisher that. Oh, I guess I also forgot that he has his 1995 series, which is like another 15 or 16 issues, right? So really closer to 260 issues. Ooh, I didn't include Punisher Magazine, I don't think. Did it have original comics inside of it? I don't know. Okay, let's continue. My number 25 is Nick Fury, Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, Volume 1. They've teased doing this in Epic Collection. We've only, I think, got 2 volumes of it right now. I'm looking down on my shelf where it is shelved somewhere. They've teased doing it in Masterworks. It didn't make it that far. This is a pipe dream. But these are some of the first Silver Age comics I ever got a chance to look at and read, because my uncle had them all, and he asked me to catalog them and use the Wizard Price Guide to figure out how much they should be sold for. And then he did eventually sell them and paid for a good chunk of his son's college tuition because they were in pretty good condition. So, this would obviously, I think you would just go big. I think you would just go big and do 2 omnibuses and make them huge, but Marvel never goes big on Masterworks era omnibuses, partially because in the case of this, there will be some material that has not been remastered yet. So they would probably need to break it into 3 40-issue omnibuses instead of 2 60-issue omnibuses. I don't love war comics, but I love that Sergeant Fury comes from this, and I love the pedigree of these comics, and I just think we're so close to having everything from Marvel's Silver Age collected that I just want them to get there. I want to do it. Okay, I really want to see that. Okay, now we go to number 24, Marvel UK Death's Head, the original years. I love original Death's Head, and this is a complete accounting of everything you would need to read original Death's Head. The problem is that some of that material is from Transformers, but since Marvel just cut a deal to let Skybound print some Marvel material in those Skybound contendians, surely Skybound could slip across some Transformers materials from Hasbro so we could get a Death's Head book. The reason this is not in my top 10, because I want this pretty bad, is that aside from the Transformer stuff, most of this exists in one big fat trade paperback that came out at some point, maybe even like the 90s, I can't remember. So like I have it and it exists. So that gives it slightly less priority against stuff that's never been collected, but I still want it bad. Plus, this could really be the complete Death's Head, which is kind of funny because he had a book at one point called The Incomplete Death's Head, but this could be the complete Incomplete Death's Head and collect all the way through Death's Head 2019 by Tini Howard, because why not? It's not like he's made so many appearances. You could even have his appearances in Kieran Gillen's Iron Man in here. But mostly what I want this for is for the original 1980s Death's Head material. He's such a funny, stupid character, and I love him so so much. I don't know if it's going to make it top 60, but I think it's going to do surprisingly well. Hell yeah, Death's Head. Death's Head is fun. Original Death's Head deserves an omnibus. Yes, that's how he talks. It's just so fun. It's Death's Head. Imagine Boba Fett, but also Deadpool, but also the dumbest Transformer. I think that describes Death's Head. He's Boba Fett as Deadpool as the dumbest Transformer is Death's Head. He's a bounty hunter. He's a robot. He's too trusting and not trusting enough. He's very high on himself, but he also makes dumb mistakes all the time. It's just, I just love this character, and I would love to buy it in omnibus. And I think a certain vintage of fans knows this character. Like, this is not Knights of Pendragon where like 5 people, of whom I was one, was excited. This is a character that is known and that people have affinity for, and Transformers fans remember because he was in Transformers UK. I do think this sells better than a lot of other Marvel UK material. Okay, number 23. Now we're getting into my bullshit. We're in my bullshit era now. Number 23 would be Ultraverse, the Ultraverse Heroes, Volume 1. Last year we had some of these on their own, but they didn't do as well. Nightman did okay, so we thought, you know what, let's just center it around Nightman, but put a bunch of the other shorter run heroes into this. This is not a complete map, and this could go to 2 volumes. We didn't get everything. Somebody was like, what about Lord Pumpkin? It's not complete. It's just the big stuff. The big stuff that it can address is Firearm, Freaks, Hardcase, and Nightman. Clearly, that is too big for one omnibus. It's 36 plus 26 is 52 plus 23 is 55, 75 issues. So right here on the slide, this is too big. But I know there's rights issues. I know there's creators they don't want to pay royalties to. I know it's not even that great. I don't care. I want it. So this would be my number 23. Look, oh my God. LOL. LMAFO. Who didn't he have a TV show? This is the Ultraverse. It's the Malibu Ultraverse. Eventually, some Marvel heroes crossed into it, and he did fight Wolverine. He did fight Gambit, but this was its own separate universe of comics in the early 90s, which I liked at the time. And Marvel has all of the rights to, because they bought Malibu mostly to get access to their coloring studio, which is very high-tech coloring and was coloring all of the hot books, including Image books at that time, because Marvel didn't want to develop their own coloring studio. But then they found that they also had the IP rights, which it turns out they did not care that much about. My number 22 pick is Ultraverse Prime. Now, Prime, let's just talk about a serious topic for a second. Prime was written by a writer who has been convicted on charges related to words I don't want to say so I don't get demonetized. Pictures of naked people that are too young to be in the naked pictures of them, which is clearly the most terrible thing. But comic books are not just made by one person. He wrote those comics. He didn't draw and ink and letter those comics. He was not the editor of those comics. He wasn't the whole team. And even if he was the whole team, I just think there's always room for art from problematic people to be archived and appreciated, but that's my personal take on it. So I appreciate that you might not feel that way, and I certainly appreciate that Marvel might not feel that way. Prime, to me, he's basically off-brand Shazam. He's very like wish fulfillment. You know, he's like a kid who turns into this big boy superhero. And it's in a period where DC was doing a very classic thing with Shazam at that time. And so this was the chance to go a little sillier, go a little Saturday morning cartoon, go a little gross, right? They really played up like the gross and disgusting. Literally, there is a one-shot called Prime Gross and Disgusting. So this just plays that character in a different way. So Chris, here's what I'll say, because Chris is taking me to task. I said I don't like different universes, and Chris is like, hold on, we're in a different universe now. I like shared continuities, and I like main universes. So I love the main Marvel universe. I do not have any time for sideline Marvel universes. I know that MC2 was its own shared side continuity. So from that perspective, it's kind of interesting to me, as opposed to like some random one-off alternate universe character. But there's so many main universe Marvel comics to read that I'm just not going to make the time for that. This Ultraverse was its own complete multi-year long, multi-title with multi-characters with multi-year runs shared universe. To me, that kind of thing is very appealing because I love the interplay of different long-running books. What MC2 doesn't have is that. MC2 has some books that ran for like 6 or 8 issues, right? Maybe did one of them even get to 10, but mostly it's just Spider-Girl and the side books. So to me, I'm not saying I make any sense or that my opinions are logical, but I'm just more interested in Ultraverse. Plus, I have specific nostalgia for Ultraverse. Okay. And humans are fallible and paradoxical. This is true. Okay, let's continue. Pick number 21, more Ultraverse BS. We're on my BS deeply right now as we're getting to the top. Rune. Rune actually is a very compelling reason to collect it because it is so much created by Barry Windsor Smith, who is a titan of the industry. And it is just crazy to have so much Barry Windsor Smith writing and art that has never been collected. Rune, you can kind of just read on its own without having read the rest of the Ultraverse. He's kind of just like creepy eternal vampire guy that's like the star of his own series. Super, super cool. So much cool Barry Windsor Smith art. So much cool art. I think just for the art alone, this should be an omnibus. Rune, yes, to Barry Windsor Smith. Rune and Prime are the only Ultraverse titles I'm interested in because of the artists. Love Brayfogle and Barry Windsor Smith. Okay. Sadly, Catch R, I can spoil and say no cross-gen on my personal list because I was not there for that. So I have no nostalgia for it. All I know is how much Tigereyes and Omar loves it. It's Tigereyes' number one personal pick is a cross-gen book. So I will eventually get there. There's an infinite number of comics to read. You'll see some of these ones as we get higher. I actually took time to sit down and read some of because I just got so enamored with the poll making. I eventually do want to read all of cross-gen, but like who knows if the eyes will even be working by the year that is and that I get to. Okay. I want to say that we have a book for that, but I could be wrong, Mr. Tex. Poke me about that. Like, put a comment in after the video. I don't know if I'm going to get through all these chats again after the video, but I definitely want to make sure we get it because the goal is to get to everything. Okay, Crisis pick number 20, more Ultraverse Manta. I actually think Manta is probably the Ultraverse hero that has the most complete story that you can just read beginning to end and really appreciate. But at the same time, she's probably the least recognizable, certainly less recognizable than both Prime and Rune. But I want it the most. And because it's a woman character, you know, starring in her own show, which I really, really love. Now we're into my top 20 things that just barely I could not find a reason to put in my top 10. And the first of that is Marvel UK, Motormouth, and Kill Power. This was the third of the big kind of longer running Marvel UK franchises. It only had 12 issues on its own, but then it had an additional miniseries called Kill Power the early years, and Kill Power was really the star of Battle Tide 1992 and Battle Tide 2 1993. So while you could find a reason to put those into a Death's Head 2 book, I think they probably collect the best here. You could put Mystech Wars here, but Mystech Wars is one of those things like Extinction Agenda that will have to be in every omnibus because all of the Dark Horse heroes are in it. Luckily, it's only 4 issues. Also, Dark Guard is the same way. So you might see those same 8 issues across multiple omnibuses. Is Marvel ever going to do this? No, I know that, but I love it and I own it and I want it in an omnibus. Okay. Number 18. I was surprised that I put this high, but this is one of those ones, X-Men First Class. So this was all written as X-Men stories that we never saw during the original run of Silver Age X-Men. It's not the Hidden Years. It's something different. Almost all of this happens before the Hidden Years, except for the First Class final stuff. I think maybe is after Hidden Years. It's not technically continuity. It's not technically not continuity. It's continuity light in that it probably fits into continuity, but nobody's really referenced it since then. The reason I'm interested in getting it all in one place is because it has there's so many different parts of it. I feel like I missed some in this map because I know there's more than just this. There's so many different parts of it that maybe it's supposed to say 1 to 18. That's going to bug me now. I got to go look and see how long that series actually is because I'm pretty sure that's a typo. It has so many different parts that's been collected in different ways. I think some of this was in a trade paperback that maybe was like digest size, and then the rest of it was in like full size paperbacks. So it's just been collected so weirdly that there's no great way to put it all in yourself. No, it was only 8 issues, but all together it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14. Oh, and then 1 through 16. That's what I was looking for. It came back on the last line. So 32 and then 36. It's 36 issues of this. I want it. I want it. And that's all that I'm going to say. I think especially with X-Men coming into the MCU soon and with the uneven quality of Silver Age X-Men, plus with Silver Age X-Men already being in Omnibus, this is perfect to collect it all into one place because it gives you a modern take that's pretty lengthy and pretty internally consistent to who the X-Men are. And a lot of it written by Jeff Parker, who we've established never writes anything bad. Kuruma saying Jeff Parker. Saz Murph saying Motormouth is interested to him because it has early Gary Frank art. I had no idea, but there's so many great artists in that early Marvel UK stuff. Yeah. JJ Tiffany saying, to me, X-Men First Class covers were fire compared to the interior art. Omnibo is currently struggling to read this. Yeah, I think it was written not for like 6-year-olds, but I think it was written in a very kind of like teenager accessible way. Honestly, I do. Okay, let's continue. We're almost to my top 10. Number 17. By the way, you only have 31 minutes left to vote on the actual Tigereyes poll. Please vote. It's representative of omnibus buyers from all across the internet. Last time I looked, it was almost at 2,700 votes, which is more than 1,000 more votes than last year. Make your voice heard. I'm telling you, I have not looked at what books place where, but I have looked at the tallies of like what amounts of votes separate people in the rank. And there are books that could be in the top 20 if they got 5 more points, which is a 5th place vote. There's books that could be in the top 60 if they got 8 more points, which is 1 3rd place vote. So if you've not already voted, go and vote. I voted last night before I went to sleep. I woke up and there were 100 more votes, which is crazy. Usually the last couple of days of the poll, it like tails off. We only got like 1 hour or something like that. No, people are going down to the wire. Okay, my number 17 pick, and it pained me not to have it in the top 10 because I want it so badly, is Marvel Fanfare Volume 2, but I just couldn't prioritize it as highly as other books because it seems obvious Marvel's going to print it, because they even said in the intro to Marvel Fanfare Volume 1, which just hit the streets, that it's one of a 3-book series. So since Marvel's already acknowledged that, it seems like I didn't want to waste one of my precious 10 votes that actually give points on Volume 2, but rest assured, I will be there to pick it up in one day. It will continue to collect Marvel Fanfare 1982. It's not going to collect all of it. They've already said it's going to be 3 books. The question is if it would also pick up the 6 issues of Marvel Fanfare 1996. I think this one will stop at issue 40. I want it so bad. Okay, 30 minutes to go. 30 minutes to go. My number 16, again, pains me that it's not in my top 10, is X-Men Legacy Volume 1 by Mike Carey. This would collect all of X-Men Legacy from the kickoff in issue 208 to right before Second Coming with issue 234. We could also call this X-Men Legacy the Professor and Rogue, because it focuses very much on Professor X at the beginning, and then it begins to focus on Rogue. This is one of my favorite X-Men runs of all time. It has amazing art, a lot of it by, I want to say, Scott Eaton. And here's the thing. I do have all of this in original premiere hardcovers. It's never been recollected. Marvel has never gone back and done a complete collection of this, which it has for almost all of the other X-Men from that era. Wolverine Origins, Matt Fraction's X-Men, Academy X has had complete collections, and this has not, which is crazy because Rogue does sell books, and so does Mike Carey. And it's just, this is going to be top 10 on the poll this year, especially because we've worked out how to do it without double dipping the Supernova stuff, which are just in the Road to Messiah complex. I fully expect this to be top 20, possibly top 10. I would day one buy. I can't wait to reread it. I haven't read it for over a decade, so maybe my memory of it is crap. Maybe it's not as good as I remember, but I remember being totally amazingly enamored and addicted to X-Men Legacy. Okay. And the Dylan UK saying that it made it into his top 10. Okay, number 15 for me, Uncanny X-Men by Matt Fraction, Volume 1, Manifest Destiny and Utopia. This would pick up from issue 500, probably, because probably the Brubaker issues will be in Messiah Complex. This is one of those books that it's a high priority for me because it collects things from disparate formats. Yes, we got it in a complete collection, but the complete collection didn't have all of the stuff that it should have. If they're going to do this right, it has to have all of the side series like Manifest Destiny. It has to have everything from Utopia Exodus, including all of Dark X-Men in the beginning, all of Dark X-Men. I think it should just put everything in a book. If Marvel announces this book and it's missing that sideline stuff, I'm not buying it, and it's just not going to be on my shelf. And I am like the #1 cheerleader to get this on my shelf. So I think it's crazy that Marvel would even consider leaving this stuff out. It's got to have Secret Invasion X-Men in it. Even though that's written by Mike Carey, it's literally happening right to the side of what's happening on the cover of this book that you see right there. This is some of my favorite X-Men material of all time. It's got amazing art by who? Greg Land. And I like an X-Men period that uses all the colors in the crayon box, right? All the X-Men are rolling into San Francisco, and Fraction is basically like, I can use anybody who turns up, I can use. We're going to have Dazzler. We're going to have Archangel. We're going to have Beast. We're going to have everybody that I can lay my hands on is going to appear in this book. We're going to bring back Psylocke. We're going to do so much cool stuff. And then we're going to have a total blowout fight with the Dark Avengers. So this, I think, forms a great arc. It starts with the X-Men being like, maybe we can have a home here in San Francisco, and it ends with them being driven back onto their Utopia Island in the San Francisco Bay. Some of my favorite comic books of all time. One Wheelchair X saying it was his #1 vote. Do you think like I do, that it should collect all the side stuff? Or do you think that it should continue to just press farther into Fraction? Okay, we're almost to my actual top 10. Number 14, Uncanny X-Men X-Corps by Joe Casey. This is this high for me for two reasons. One, it's an obvious gap, right? We have Uncanny X-Men all the way up until this point in the oversized hardcovers of things like Eve of Destruction. And then we have Extreme X-Men and we have New X-Men. This actually comes before Chuck Austen. It is the 16 issues that happen before Chuck Austen. So actually, I would want this first, although they aren't dependent on each other. But because it's only 16 issues, I think you could put lots of weird shit in this. To me, this title is code name for X-Men, the weird shit. Because let me tell you, Joe Casey's X-Men is really weird. It's very strange. And so since it's so strange, there's room for it to pick up other stuff. I think this not only would continue the collection of all of X-Men Unlimited to make sure we have an unbroken run of it, which adds another huge 10 issues padding out this book. It would also pick up Spidey and Marrow probably, which is going to get abandoned from all the other parts of the X-Men line. It probably also could have all of the Brotherhood 2001, which is a great tonal fit for the weirdness of this run. And it kind of shows what's happening with bad mutants in opposition to Banshee forming this X-Corps with the good mutants. So already we're past 40 issues. But wait, there's even more weird stuff. We could put some or all of the X-Men Icon miniseries like Cyclops 1-4, Iceman 1-4, Nightcrawler 1-4, Chamber 1-4, and Rogue 1-4. Some of those really make sense here because Iceman appears in this run and so does Chamber. Plus there was the Hellfire Club. You could say that you would try to squeeze that into something before this era like X-Men Magneto War, but it actually came out during that Eve of Destruction period. So it's kind of already been abandoned. And it's a great fit for, again, the weirdness of this period, as is Muties, as is Morlocks. So this is the one where I don't actually have great faith that Marvel would do this well. If Marvel let me map it, I would go in, it would be a work of art. It would be beautiful. I would figure out every issue, the perfect order, everything it should include Marvel. I'm happy to be hired at a very affordable rate to be your freelance mapper for when it comes time to make this book. Because if they just put out some BS version of this, because what they could do is they could just start at $3.94 and have this be X-Men by Casey and Austin, Chuck Austen, and just collect Casey and Austin, right? That would be a pretty big book, but they do it all in one. Maybe it includes the unlimited issues, maybe not. I just think there is a brief window of opportunity here where the maps of the existing books are such that we really could cover everything X-Men without having to make an extra book that's like X-Men, the unrelated booger nonsense. We don't have to do that right now because there's actually room to slip a little bit of booger into every healthy meal. And then the boogers are just, it's like how how many spiders you eat a year? A lot of spiders, because there's an allowable amount of spiders in your cornflakes. And so I'm just saying we can't have a book that's oops, all spiders, but we can say, here's an X-Men book with a couple of spiders for you to eat. And I think that this is a perfect example of that book. Oh no, my kryptonite super job. The Morlock series is written by Geoff Johns. I almost put Geoff Johns in my top 10. How did I do that? How did it happen? One Wheelchair X saying, yes, it should include the extra stuff. He's, of course, talking about the Matt Fraction, but could also be talking about this as well. Hellfire Club could go into cable. I agree. I think if it's better into cable because it has more to do what's going on with cable. But at the same time, we all know that some people are only buying like the main line of X-Men books. So I do think there's a certain incentive that every miniseries that like has to do with the main thread of X-Men somehow finds its way into the main line, even if we could map it into the sideline. But if we knew if I was working for Marvel and I picked up my handset apparently and off the wall and said, hey Marvel, should I put the Hellfire Club to this? And they would say, don't worry, Crisis, we're also going to hire you to perfectly map the cable line. I go, great, because my friend John said that the Hellfire Club should go in the cable line, so we're going to leave it out of this one. But since I can't have that conversation with Marvel just yet, we're going to say that it could go into this. Chromite, I am so happy you're having fun. I'm having fun. I need to find a way and time to do this kind of stream that's about collections and stuff in addition to the Pola stream, which I love doing and I have so much fun doing. But I know that some of you want to catch up on regular new comics. Some of you want to catch up on collections, and I got to find a way to serve both. But there's only so many hours in the day. So I'm trying my best. And we're experimenting. We're just doing something. Okay, we're almost in the top 10. Again, pain not putting this in my top 10. But we have the Epic collections. It is one of the next X-Men books off the shelf that should be an oversized book, and it would be gorgeous. There's so much great art in this. To Omar's point, it needs to be rescanned because they could do better scans than the Epic scans. Maybe that's what's holding us up. If they just do it in the Epic scans, it's going to be a little disappointing. this is breaking one of my cardinal rules, which I have something almost in my top 10 that has been totally collected. We have a complete total collection of all this material. It's out of reach, but it's right down there in Epic Collection. So I could not put it in my top 10. My top 10 you're going to see is focused on stuff that's criminally under collected. But I love this book. I think it's so readable. I think we're at the time where the nostalgia is right and people know and remember Generation X. It's why we have them appearing in comics now, because the writers even have nostalgia for them, like Hickman. We have people who love this material now. So now is the time. It hurts, pain that I couldn't actually vote for it, but it's just already on my shelf, and I could not give one of my votes to something I already have on my shelf in a perfectly good format. Number 9 for Cruel Angel, number 3 for One Wheelchair X. Here's the thing about, I want to basically always have a Monday stream, and then I want to have a Thursday stream any week we're not doing Near Mint Condition on a Thursday, or when we have a short one like this. Like, so if it's an Evergreen week, I'm like the co-host of Evergreen. Clearly, I'm not going to do my own 4-hour stream on an Evergreen week. Also, if we have something like poll results or Map My X, I'm not going to do a stream. But in my mind, I would do both. But here's the thing. It takes me, and I've said this many times, 4 to 10 or 12 hours to make a new guide. So if I add an extra 3-hour stream onto my schedule of life every week, that means every 4 weeks I could have gotten done another comic book guide, maybe 2 for the streaming time. And I have to remember, Crushing Crisis comes first. Like, I love you all, and I love being on YouTube, and I love being here with my curly hair in front of you all. But I also have to remember that Crushing Crisis is like the thing that hundreds of thousands of people are looking at every month, day, week, I guess month, hundreds of thousands. So I've always got to feed that beast. And so so if it's the choice between, would I love to stream every day? Yes, I would love to be an everyday streamer, just like Omar and Jess, but they are not writing a website that's 4 million plus words that has hundreds of thousands of viewers every month. So I always have to balance out how much time I have for streaming and how much time I have for Crushing Crisis. And if I find, I always say, if 2 times the amount of people are in Patreon, then that would make that decision easier, because I could turn down some other things that I do in my life if Patreon was twice as supported as this is currently. Okay. You're going to see, we're almost there. Why spoil now? Are you one of these people that gets to the end of the chapter of the book, JJ Tiffany, and then you're like, let me just skip ahead to the end chapter now that I'm at the penultimate chapter? You're going to see in three votes, you're going to see what went in my top 10. Okay. Number 2. And to think, last night I was saying to Max, I'm not going to do this. It's too much work. It's going to take me hours to make this slideshow. Nobody cares about my top 60. I'm only going to do a top 10. No, we did 60. My number 12 pick is Quasar by Mark Gruenwald, Volume 2. Why Volume 2? Because Volume 2 has Star Blast in it. Star Blast is a Marvel event that has never been collected. It had its own Star Blast event miniseries. Oh, I'm sorry. This has the text on it for Quasar Volume 1. Could I quickly fix that? Because oh no, spoilers. All right, well now you know that's my next pick. Okay, let's fix this, because this is going to make me crazy. Let me just go get the actual contents while I talk. Now you get to see me multitask in real time. So Star Blast was a 4-issue miniseries that was an event series that also crossed over into Quasar with every issue, but then it also had tie-ins in Secret Defenders. It kind of tied in a little bit to Fantastic Four. There are a lot of other books that tied into it, and it's never been collected at all. Like, to the best of my knowledge, not even the Star Blast stuff has ever been collected. And so it's kind of to me a missing event. And I pride myself on having a complete accounting of every Marvel event ever. I see what the problem is. Okay. I have a complete shelf of every Marvel event. So of course I want this, because not only does it collect this end of Quasar, which has never been collected before, but it also has all of Star Blast in it. There we go. Okay. And then we make it bold. Great. So that's the actual contents of this book. So it collects Quasar 32 through 34, which is before Operation Galactic Storm. Actually, it would also collect all of Quest Probe, which gets resolved here, yet another Marvel event that would only ever appear in this book. Then it would have some elements of Galactic Storm, but then it would have all of Star Blast crossover, which is like 16 parts. And then it would finish all of Quasar, and it would have stuff from after Quasar, including Star Masters 1995. This just collects so much previously uncollected material that it's so attractive to me to have all in one place. Then number 11, as you saw by mistake, I went a little bit ahead. Patsy Walker. I want this so bad. It started in 1945. Patsy had a lot of material. Let's talk about it. Patsy Walker, 1944, 1 through 124. Patsy and Hetty, 1952, 1 through 110, an annual 1. Patsy and her pals, 1 through 29, and A Date with Patsy, just one for that. So we're looking at over 230 comics. It's just never going to happen for us. The restoration cost for Marvel to make these print ready to go out and print, there would be so much restoration. They would either have to scan them from original comics and clean them up, or maybe they have the print files, but they still would have to do a lot of cleanup and recolor. It's probably never going to happen. I think there's a lot of value to preserving our history. I just think that a lot of people have forgotten that these comics existed. And I love all comics, even romance comics. And even though I might not currently read a romance style comic in the year of our Lord 2025, I absolutely have an academic and personal interest in reading those comics from the 1940s and 1950s. And I think we're on the borderline of them being lost media. I think this regime of Marvel has a chance to find a way to get some of it into print now. And I just feel like if we don't get it in the next 5 or 10 years, it's just going to never, ever happen. So I continue to be a champion for seeing this stuff in Omnibus. Okay, are you ready for my official top 10? These are my actual votes that I locked in 12 hours ago. You only have 15 minutes left to vote. Here we go. Number 10, The Marvels Omnibus. This is one that I did not give a single shit about before doing the mapping for this year. And when I mapped it, I realized how much I would love it all in one book. This is one of these things that Marvel's had all over the place. Some of it's collected, some of it's not collected. I just think it's a great opportunity. So everybody knows Marvel's 1994, which is the main series. It also had an epilogue that's been collected many times. But then they had a lot of books that imitated the Marvels. They had Tales of the Marvels in 3 2-issue series. They had Ruins. They had Code of Honor. Then they did Conspiracy. Then they later had something that was very similar to Marvels called Eye of the Camera. These are collected in a couple of different trades, but not all in one place. But I think there's other stuff you could add to it. And there's 2 options, and actually could fit it all. You could do the Marvels Project 2009. It's actually much more of a sequential super team book, and it's less like the Marvels, but you could take the perspective that these are all kind of lightly retroactive continuity looks at the earlier Silver Age and Bronze Age part of the Marvel universe. So why wouldn't you have it there? Similarly, Kurt Busiek actually comes back and writes, I think it was him, or was it Wade? I think it was Busiek, writes The Marvels 2020, which again is one sequential book in the modern day, but it adds a lot of retcon elements. I wouldn't strongly argue for that middle section. I actually think you would add all of the Marvel snapshot issues from 2020 onto the end of this book, because it kind of takes a similar approach at looking at one moment of time. But you know what? Even if you didn't add any of the stuff in the last 2 paragraphs, and I think it's a hard sell to include those, I just think all this book deserves to be in one place, finally, all in oversized, not some of it in gallery, not some of it in paperback, just all of Marvel's street view of the universe in one place. There are many other things you could argue to go in here, which is why I said in the description of the title there, street level and flashback series like Tales of the Marvels. If you can think of other stuff that's at that street level or on that flashback quality, I think there's a good argument to put it here. I just think that you could title it something like Marvels, like a retroactive view of the Marvel universe or something like that. You could even argue to include Mark Waid's history of the Marvel universe at the end of this and make it all about kind of retroactive recap looks of the Marvel universe. I think any way that you build that book with Marvels at the center is a book that would be a really, really fun way to build it. So there's a whole Ruins is on there. Somebody said no Ruins. It's right there, baby, right there. So yeah, I don't think this is a complete map. I think you could all make a ton of suggestions for additional things that could be on this map. I think they absolutely could go into this map. Frontline could go in this map. The one thing I wouldn't put into this map is any totally present day series that's just happening during like an event. Like I wouldn't put like a Daily Bugle series that's like focusing on what Spider-Man's doing during the Clone Saga. That to me is, I think this everything in this book should have some kind of either painterly street view or retroactive view. But I really want it, and the more and more I wrote about it and mapped it, the more and more I got interested in it. And so, but you know what? If the way we get it is to call it Frontline and make it like Marvel through the eye of the camera, then great. I think any way we can have this book, I'm very, very interested in having this book. It just feels like DC would release this. Like this seems like an evergreen seller of like a very stately historical view of the Marvel universe. That why would you not put it in all in one place? Okay, I'm going to continue. My number 9, you are going to say, what the F? It's My Love. So My Love was a 4-issue series in 1949. Then there's My Love Story in 1956, but most of why I want this is My Love 1969. And the reason I want it is not just because it's My Love from the actual Summer of Love, but because of all of the artists in this book. Now, this has never been collected. There's like one issue that's, I think, on Marvel Unlimited. And so, but there have been excerpts in it in other books where they've like showed a page or two. You can find pages of it on the internet. You could at least go and see the covers on comics.org. But I want to I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. I want to just go on comics.org and read you the names of the creators who were in this book, and you will understand why I think it is important to have this published. So the pencils on the first issue, covers and interiors by John Romita Jr. throughout the issue, also John Buscema and Sal Buscema, written entirely by Stan Lee. The second issue, interior pencils by Don Heck, then pencils by John Romita Sr., written by Stan Lee. Let's keep going. John Romita, John Buscema. This is like the who's who of the Marvel pencilers and inkers. Issue 4 has a story called The Boy Who Got Away, by Stan Lee, pencils by Gene Colan. These are every amazing superhero artist of the late 1960s, and they're all drawing romance stories written by Stan Lee. I think that has such a Dick Giordano penciled a story in My Love #7 with inks from Vince Coletta. There is so much incentive to see all of this stuff. And I think the way you sell it is you market it as an art book. You just say Marvel Romance by the Marvel Masters, Marvel Romance by Romita, Buscema, and Colan. I think you sell it on the strength and put Stan Lee's name in there too. So these are all, it's not one continuous story. They're all single issues that have multiple stories in them. Jack Kirby pencils a romance story in issue number 10. I'm just going to keep going through them. I just think there's so much historical interest in this. It has every major Marvel artist from the late 60s drawing romance stories written by Stan Lee. I just think it would be absolutely insane to never see this collected. And I think while we still have people alive and with wallets who are interested in buying books from the Silver Age, who have a love of all of these artists, you absolutely should get this out there. If you have never looked through the covers, go to comics.org and search for My Love. Look at the 1969 series. Every single cover on this series is an absolutely stunning work of art, and it's by all of the best of the best of Marvel. Fantagraphics could do it. They could. Right now, Fantagraphics is only focused on the 40s and 50s stuff, so they might collect that My Love 1949 and even the 1956. I don't think we've seen them do anything as late as 1969. If they do, I will be there. But I had to throw some points. I know this is not going to be in the official top 60. I don't care. When I saw this cover, I was like, look at that art. And I just got deeper and deeper. I looked into it more and more. I was on comics.org for an hour looking at every cover they've got. I'm obsessed. My number 8 pick, which got 3 points from me, is X-Files, the Topps comic series. Now, somebody just pointed out that in that recent podcast interview that Hickman did, he mentioned that he knows that Marvel has the rights to do X-Files now, which seems obvious because it's a Fox property. But like, there's some question of like, oh, maybe it's still with another publisher or not. No. It's at Marvel. So we could have this right now. We could have this tomorrow. Now, to be fair, IDW did already collect this within the past 15 years, so it has been collected. But I totally missed that. I didn't even realize they were doing it, or trust me, I would have bought it. So now we're in the present day, and we know that the files have already been put together. And since the files are already together, this would not be a heavy lift. This early Topps Comics years ran alongside the actual X-Files show. So these were coming out during the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th seasons of X-Files. It was a 41-issue series and a half and a special edition, but they had a digest that had additional stories. They had an OGN, and they specifically adapted several of the most famous episodes from season 1, including Squeeze and Ice, 2 of my favorite series or episodes of all time. Then they had a mini series called Ground Zero, and they had some other stuff too. So this would be all way prior to the IDW years. This is X-Files comics that are contemporaneous with the original release of X-Files. I actually went down to the stacks because I have the first 5 issues of this, including this issue you see on screen. And I went down to the stacks and pulled them out and read them. And it is friggin' cool. If you love the X-Files, every one of these issues, I think, will scratch the itch for you. This is another fandom that is rabid. People will come out of the woodwork to buy it if it gets collected all into one place and marketed correctly by the mouse. And I really would love to see it. So I never thought that I would have IP, non-Marvel superhero IP, on my ballot. But the idea of getting this in an omnibus is just too powerful. I could not resist. James Abel is partially responsible for this, so I blame you, James. He was the bully who made me. Liar's Library loves it. OmniDog loves it. We all of us older people of discerning taste loves X-Files. JJ Tiffany knew I would have X-Files in my top 10. I wasn't originally. This was I couldn't like, I was like, are you really going to do this? Especially because it was collected. But the way that IDW collected didn't have everything all together in the way that I would want it. And Marvel has the ability to do that. I think they'd break it into two just because X-Files is a moneymaker, but like it could all fit into one book. The Dylan UK would be so down for this. I think X-Files #1 was on the Wizard top 10 comics for years. This would finally get me to watch X-Files from beginning to end. Next, Imagine saying the X-Files Omnis will come. Ryan Coogler remains adamant about following through in his TV reboot. I mean, could you imagine? Ryan Coogler X-Files would be so amazing. It was also in John's top 10. This, I don't have any insider info. I have not looked at how the votes are going. There's 6 more minutes left to get your votes in. It could sneak into the top 60. I think it'll be in the top 100, which you don't see, but I see. And if it is, I will make sure to give a shout out on the stream if it makes it into the top 100. I think there are more people who are X-Files fans than anybody even realizes because it spans years. Like it was around before Buffy, but it lasted as long as Buffy. So I think a lot of people from different generations like X-Files. People who are 20 years older than me love X-Files. I love X-Files. People who are 10 or 15 years younger than me have come to X-Files. I just think a lot of people love X-Files. Okay. My number 7 pick, got 4 points, is Ultraverse Ultra Force. I put this as my highest Ultraverse book because I think this is the book that stands alone the best. I think especially because it has Black Knight in the back half of it. There's a tie to the canonical Marvel universe, even though they're not in the Marvel universe. And I think if Marvel were to put this out and people rediscover these characters, then you have an excuse to put out the books for Prime and Manta and Rune. I think you got to start with this book. I think this is the beachhead. A lot of people have made great comments on Crushing Crisis that there are other things that they would include on this to kind of carry the spine of the story. I don't know this continuity super, super well. I just know that I've went shopping for it 100 times. And if I went to the United States, I would somehow bring an empty suitcase and just somehow fit all of Ultra Force and all of Malibu into that one suitcase, which would probably be way over the weight limit. But I want it so bad. There's no way to get it in New Zealand. I just think this is the one. I think this is the one you start with. I think this is the one you can easily market. I think this doesn't have as objectionable ties to 90s things that they and creators that they want to stay away from, although those creators are on these books. And I think it's a chance to finally break ground and to see if there's enough of a market out there. And if we, you know what, if we never got anything else from the Ultraverse, at least we would have this core of the Ultraverse. And this is the part that crossed over with Avengers that had a Phoenix story in it, which is non-canonical, but still it's a chance to get that. Okay, I see a couple questions. Samantha Jane, my friend, who one day I'll get to actually hang out with in person here in New Zealand. How do I decide between epics and omnis? Well, I buy every epic. I don't buy the modern epics, but any classic epic I buy. So it just becomes a question of, do I want that in omni? Generally, I only buy the X line in omnis, but there are some, I will buy a one and done omni of a classic material thing. So like I will buy a Miss Marvel omni. If they I bought the Dazzler omni. If they put out a Spider-Woman omni, I will get that. But I'm done with buying lines of omnibuses that don't have X on the spine. That's just because I have them in epics already. So like New Warriors, I kind of feel a little FOMO that I didn't get those omnibuses, but I have faith they're going to do epic collections. And everything else, I've got the epics right here. So I've kind of gotten out of the omni game. I just think epics are easier to store, easier to transport, easier to read. They tend to be mapped really well. So, but I still would buy all 6 of these omnis. And if you go back through and you rewatch this, you'll see I'm pretty consistent that I'm not suddenly buying a Venom line. There's no Spider-Man book. Sorry, I love Spider-Man. I truly do. But I do not F with Spider-Man omnibuses. So he's not on my top picks. There are 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left. If you're in line. No, that is not true. If you're in line, the line will be cut off at the doors. The votes end in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So this is going to go longer before my will go longer than the actual poll. You have 2 minutes to vote in the poll. You're not going to find out my number 1 until after the poll closes. You can't vote with me. My pick number 6 is Miracle Man, Marvel Man, the early years. Now look, unfortunately, speaking of creator names that Marvel doesn't want to mess with, it seems to be the theme of my top 10 and top 20. We're never going to probably get the end of the Miracle Man trilogy of Golden Age, Silver Age, and Dark Age by Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham, because they were so damn slow about it that Neil Gaiman went and milkshake ducked himself before we got the final. Real people matter more than comics. I'm not complaining that Neil Gaiman isn't going to finish it. I'm just saying eventually we would have gotten an omnibus of that, and now we're only ever going to have 2/3 of it. However, there is so much classic Marvel Man, so much. We're talking hundreds hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of issues of classic Marvel, man, that Marvel has just barely scratched, barely touched, barely put a fingerprint on. How am I still on? Because I got stamina, baby. That's why I'm still on, Omar. There's so much material, and it's gorgeous material, and it's classic material. There's a reason that Alan Moore decided to tap this. So it's basically Shazam with the serial numbers filed off, but it's got, after it starts out being very, very much just a copy of Shazam, it just turns into so much more. I cannot emphasize how beautiful the artwork on this is. You're really finding out in my top 10 here. This is me nerding out about comics of the Atlas and Silver Age. I don't want to go without them ever being collected. Marvel has the power, and I think I picked books that they could figure out how to market. I think there's a way to market this book as part of comic book history, as the early story of Miracle Man. I think there's still enough people out there that would buy it. If we wait 10 years, not to be grim, but some of the people who've been waiting their whole lives for some of these 50s and 60s books to be comprehensive reprints are not going to be around as much 10 and 20 years from now. Let's make them happy before they die and put out the book while they're still around to buy them. Okay, here we go. By the way, the poll is now closed. If you voted this very second, you might make it in, but Jim is ruthless and he will cut off your votes. So I purposely timed it so I would not tell you what my top pick was. The poll is now over. Let's talk about my top 5 picks for Omnibus. Number 5, Marvel UK, Death's Head 2, baby. I love this stupid, ugly effer. This has got so much art by Liam Sharp. I think you would actually put in the title, Death's Head by Liam Sharp. It has Death's Head at a 4-issue miniseries. Then he came back for Death's Head 2, Death's Head 2 for another 16 issues. And then there's Death's Head 2 in the origin of Die Cut. And then there's Death's Head Gold, which has some timey-wimey stuff that kind of fits all the way back to the beginning of Death's Head and explains how he's sort of the broken down version of the original Death's Head, but sort of not. He's also in Battle Tide 1 and 2. I think those probably fit better in the Motormouth and Kill Power book. He's also in Dark Guard, which I think you do have to put here because he kind of co-leads that team with Dark Angel. I think there's also some side appearances of his that you could include here, but there's this whole separate side of Marvel UK that's all like death-related stuff. So I think you probably could make a good argument of a Die Cut versus G-Force in here, Die Cut 1 through 4, Death Wreck 1 through 4, Death Metal, because they're all tangentially related to him. And honestly, where else are they going to go? This book probably is the best sales potential out of the entire Marvel UK line because of the Liam Sharp stuff. So that's, I want it bad. I own every issue in this. I have it all rubber banded together and ready to be bound, but I'd rather just buy an omnibus. Farewell, Omar. Omar, thank you so much for making the Tigereyes poll such an amazing reality that reached more people. Tigereyes is the one that did it. The credit will never be taken away from him from doing it on his own for over a decade. But Omar and featuring it on Near Mint Condition and putting in the work and the visibility that he's put into it as the home of collected editions is why we have almost 3,000 votes this year. And we're going to do it again next month with DC. So thank you so much, Omar. Go back to the dungeon and continue mapping Avengers. Just remember, you already know somebody who's mapped it for you. Okay, we have now my top 4 picks. Number 4. Oh, look, it's another Marvel UK book. It's Marvel UK Dark Angel. I love this character. She's so cool. She's basically got like chakras down her body that have different gems. It's like if somebody wore the Infinity Stones as their chakra gems, or the rings of the Mandarin, and like got power from that, if that makes any sense. I just think she's super cool. It's got a ton of X Factor co-starring in it, so I think you could absolutely mark it. In fact, almost every one of these issues has X Factor in it or has Excalibur in it. But do you know how you sell this? You call it Dark Angel by Brian Hitch. Brian Hitch drew that cover. Brian Hitch penciled many of these issues. The covers are out of this world. If you just go and scroll through the covers, even when he didn't do the interiors, which he didn't do a ton of the interiors. In fact, maybe he didn't do any, and I just made that up. Oh no, but some of the interiors are by Gary Frank. But you've got all these amazing Hitch covers, and I just think Dark Angel is a cool hero. I don't understand how we have not managed to bring her back. I just think the covers are so cool. The interiors are so cool. The stories are so cool. And she continues to Dark Guard, which she co-anchors. And then also, this is a hilarious detail. It's somewhere on the shelf here. I don't know if I can lay hands on it right now. But there's this book. I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to walk up. You're not even looking at me. You're looking at the slide. So they did a final OGN of her at the end of Marvel UK. That was her and this other Marvel UK Hero Wild thing. But then Marvel UK had already folded. So there was no Marvel UK to put out the issue. And so they but they still had the rights and the issue was already drawn fully. So they wound up, I don't know where it is in here. They wound up putting it out in Italy in black and white in Italian. So there's this one issue of Dark Angel. It's one of the few Marvel issues that have never, I can't find it, that have never come out in English. And I think they would translate that and print it in full in black and white here. It's the Marvel Top 6 Wild Angels OGN. And then because it has that, I think we would do Wild Thing 1 through 7. Okay, let's finish up, shall we? My number 3 pick, the Nom Volume 2. This should not be a surprise based on how excited I was about the Nom last year. We only need one book to finish it. And I do not think it is a sure thing. I think Marvel could very easily say, we put out volume 1. It wasn't the strongest seller. Now you have an example of it. It's not like one big hero story that they've got to finish, but I want it finished. And this book has the Punisher material in it, which I don't know if you want to market under that. I think he gets in some really murky ethical area to be marketing this very grounded take on the Vietnam War by saying, and it's got the Punisher, but he is in this book. And I think some fans of the Nom and of Punisher have been waiting for this book because it has the Punisher stuff in it. Please, Marvel, please, please. I gave this so many points because I really am hoping it's going to be in the top 60 this year to drive home that there is demand for this. I hope the sales demand for the first one showed that. It's nothing in this has been collected. I think there's been like maybe 2 issues randomly that have been collected in like certain artist books or like other books, but this is largely 40 issues of uncollected material. So I'm really, really hoping that this is going to happen. My number 2 pick, I faked you out by talking so much about Quasar Volume 2 like I wanted it on its own. No, I want Quasar Volume 1 too. So here's the thing. Some of this has been collected already, and I have it in classic trades, and then a trade that wasn't, it's called the Cosmic Collision or something that wasn't a classic, but effectively a classic. They only collect through issue 25 though, and this would probably push all the way up to right before that Quest Probe stuff, right before Operation Galactic Storm. So this has at least got 6 or 7 issues that we've never had collected in color. Plus, some commenters on the poll brought me around to the idea that you also would just include all of Quasar's origin material. Like he starts as Marvel Man, he's in Captain America, then he's in Defenders. I did the math, and honestly, it's not so many issues that you wouldn't be able to fit it here. And it's not a big double dip from any one book. I think when there's one hero who like has their whole origin in one book, and it's like, oh, we need 25 issues of Marvel 2-in-1 to explain this character. Like, no, you're not going to double dip 25 issues of Marvel 2-in-1. But this has got 2 issues of Cap, 3 issues of Defenders, another 2 issues of Cap, 3 issues of Incredible Hulk, 8-ish issues of 2-in-1, 2 issues of Dazzler, 1 issue of Team Up, 3 issues of Defenders. That's doable. We're not double dipping any book. So I think this is exciting because it can explain all of who Quasar is, all of his origin in one place, which we've never had before. And it could collect all of his early issues, the whole first half of the series, which, by the way, is entirely by Mark Grunwald, as is the entire series, and get all the way to some issues we have never had in color collected before at the end. I really want to see this. There are not a lot of Marvel books left that made it over the 30-issue mark that we have not seen collected at this point. It's this, Darkhawk, Sleepwalker. There's not a lot, and they're all from that late 80s, early 90s. And all those books, Sleepwalker, and Darkhawk, they're from the early 90s. This is truly, I think, don't quote me on this, but now that we have the Nom Volume 1 and we have Marvel Fanfare, this might be the last Marvel book launched in the 80s that we don't at least have half of collected in color. I could be wrong. But, well, I guess Web of Spider-Man, but even Web of Spider-Man, we got a first omnibus, and then later of Web of Spider-Man, we've gotten Clone Saga. So yeah. Okay, so you have now seen 59 of my picks. So I want to know, oh, hey, the comic book report is here. I just, hello to you, sir. Thank you so much for stopping by, Dom. I had so much fun doing Evergreen with him. I hope I get to do some stuff with him again in the future. Quasar would have been Dylan UK's 17th pick. Probably will make your top 10 next year. So what do we think my number 1 is? Do you have guesses? Is it going to be X-Men nonsense? Is it going to be some totally unreprinted nonsense? You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I cannot even remember what it was. It was something that I was like, this really needs my 10 points. Oh, I know what it is. All right, I'll give you a hint. You already know that I want it. You've heard me talking about it already. And it has never before been collected in color. So I will just breeze through my top 60 while you all make guesses. I'm just going to run to, oh boy, I should have actually just counted down to 60 instead of up. Why am I doing this way? I don't know. Okay, ready? I'm going to do this at micro. You have 60 seconds to make your guesses. 60, Quasar the Silver Age. 59, X-Men Blue and Gold Volume 2. 58, New X-Men Academy X by DeFilippis and Weir. X-Men number 57, X-Men Academy X by Kyle and Yost, Childhood End. 56, X-Men Road to Onslaught Volume 2. 55, Road to Messiah Complex by Brubaker and Carey. 54, Thanos, The Road to Annihilation. 53, Excalibur Volume 4. 52, Shang-Chi, The Modern Years by Jean Lin Yang. 51, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, The Miss Marvel Years by Brian Reed. 50, my bisexual or pansexual, he loves everybody, Murder Son Dakin, appearing originally in Wolverine Origins by Daniel Way. 49, X-Men Uncanny X-Men Reloaded by Claremont. 48, Uncanny X-Men by Kieran Gillen. 47, Uncanny X-Men by Matt Fraction Volume 2, which would be all of Second Coming. 46, The Marvel UK Companion. You'll notice that I have every single Marvel UK book in my top 60 picks. Number 45, X-Men Solo, Nate Gray, The X-Man Volume 1. Number 44, X-Force by Kyle and Yost, including Messiah War and Necrosha. Number 43, X-Factor, The Original X-Men. Number 42, X-Men Solo Gambit, Volume 1, maybe getting all the way to Gambit by Nicieza in 1999. Number 41, Darkhawk, a complete omnibus. Number 40, Marvel's Contests of Champions, collecting all of the Contests of Champions. 39, Power Pack by Gurihiru. 38, Deadpool and X-Force Baddest Blood by Rob Liefeld. 37, Dracula, The Modern Years. Number 36, Silver Age X-Men, aka The Lost Years, aka The Darkest Before the Dawn. Number 35, Uncanny X-Men by Kelly and Siegel. Number 34, X-Men Trial of Gambit. Number 33, Wolverine Marvel Knights, which could mean many different things, but definitely has the Greg Rucka material. Number 32, X-Men Messiah Complex, all together in one omnibus. Number 31, Uncanny X-Men by Chuck Austin, baby. Number 30, Namor the Submariner Golden Age Volume 1, or is it really just the Warriors? Either or would work for me. Number 29, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the classic years from Dark Horse Comics. Number 28, Alpha Flight, the modern years, 1997 and on. Number 27, Inhumans, the earlier years, which would actually be 3 decades of Inhumans. Number 26, Punisher Classic, which I would only buy if it has all of the Punisher titles. Number 25, Nick Fury's Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos Volume 1. Number 24, Marvel UK, the original Death's Head. Number 23, Ultraverse, the Ultraverse Heroes Companion. Number 22, Ultraverse Prime. Number 21, Rune from the Ultraverse with that Barry Windsor Smith art. Number 20, Ultraverse Mantra. Number 19, Marvel UK Motor Mouth and Kill Power. Number 18, X-Men First Class. Number 17, Marvel Fanfare Volume 2 of 3. Number 16, X-Men Legacy Volume 1 by Mike Carey, a great book of the Professor and Rogue. Number 15, Uncanny X-Men by Matt Fraction, aka Manifest Destiny and Utopia. Number 14, Uncanny X-Men X-Core by Joe Casey. Number 13, Generation X Volume 1. Number 12, Quasar by Mark Gurnall Volume 2. Number 11, Patsy Walker, the Omnibus Volume 1. Number 10, A Complete Marvels Omnibus. Number 9, Marvel Romance. Number 8, X-Files, The Topps Comics Years. Number 7, Ultraverse Ultra Force, all in one book. Number 6, Miracle Man, Marvel Man, The Early Years. Number 5, Marvel UK Death's Head. Number 2, Number 4, Marvel UK Dark Angel. Number 3, The Nom. Number 2, Quasar Volume 1. And who, a lot of people are guessing Indiana Jones. Some people are guessing Akira. A lot of Akira guesses. I saw somebody who got it right. Thor Simonson with original colors. Cloak and Dagger 3. Is it Secret Wars with all of the Secret Wars in it? I have pimped for that. The Simpsons. Captain Britain and MI13 was actually my number 61. I just could not move what I had in my top 60 out for that one. No, there is one person who's been paying enough attention to get my number 1 pick correct, and it was John, because my number 1 pick is Alpha Flight number 3. And why? Because it continues an omnibus line we've already started, because it collects things that are not collected in color, and because I love my stupid Canadian superheroes. But here's another thing about this. So the 2 books together have collected 70 issues. So they're weighing in. It sounds like it's just 35 issues each, but not quite, because the John Byrne first Alpha Flight book is 30 issues of Alpha Flight, but it has all of the prelude stuff from X-Men. And then the second book has some sideline Alpha Flight stuff from other places too. So they actually both are more like 40 issue omnibuses. So the question is, this would absolutely collect what's in that first paragraph. Issues 71 to 101, a brief story from Marvel Comics Presents. And I think you have to pick up the Puck team up from Wolverine 35 to 37, not only because it's great, but because none of them ever really make meaningful team up appearances elsewhere. So why would you not? But we're not at 45 issues yet. And so far, each of these has been 45 issues. And Marvel does not want to sell too many Alpha Flight omnibuses. I mean, they would love to, but they know that they can't. So if we actually stretch to 45 issues, this would at least go to Alpha Flight 106, which would then have North Star's coming out story, which I think is a way for them to market this book. And they probably then throw in North Star 1 through 4, since why not put North Star's miniseries in here? But at that point, we're only 24 issues away from the end of Alpha Flight. So I think at that point, one of two things happen. We either have issues 71 through 106 and North Star 104, and then volume 4 collects to the end of the series, and then all of the 1997 series, which again would be almost exactly 45 issues. That's one thing that could happen. The other thing that could happen is this could just collect to the end of Alpha Flight. If you add it all together, it comes up to under 70 issues. It could be a big omnibus, but there's only so many times Marvel can sell an Alpha Flight book, and this does not have the creator pedigree of having Jim Lee's name on it. So I think at minimum, it collects 71 to 101, which is a great breaking point. I think realistically, it probably collects to issue 106 to have North Star's coming out series story, although they might decide to just save that for the volume 4 if they're really going to break it up, because they're like, well, at least that would be a way to solve volume 4. And potentially, it really could maybe collect all of Alpha Flight to the end of the 1983 series. This is my number one pick. It's uncollected, it's X-Men adjacent, and I really place a premium on seeing lines completed. Do I think maybe we could get an Alpha Flight line of Epic Collections? Maybe, but to collect 130 issues in Epic Collections, we're looking at least 5 Epic Collections, probably 6 or 7 Epic Collections. And Alpha Flight is not a big seller unless somehow Marvel manages to squeeze them into the MCU. So I am putting all my apples in this cart. I am putting all of my votes. I gave this 10 points. And you know what? I think it's going to do well because volume 2 just came out. People are hyped to get it. And this is a single line. Like there's no other Alpha Flight to pick. You just pick the next one. Volume 2 did incredibly well last year. I'm really hoping in the voting, which closed 15 minutes ago, that we will have Alpha Flight volume 3, aka by Hudnall and Cieza, following Mount Lowly, in the top 60. And I hope actually it's in the top 30. So that's it. That is my ballot, my actual ballot. I gave 10 points to Alpha Flight Volume 3, 9 to Quasar by Monk Grunwald, 8 to the Nom, 7 to Dark Angel, 6 to Death's Head 2, 5 to Marvel Man, 4 to Ultra Force, 3 to X-Files, although now in the morning light, I maybe would have put it above the Ultra Force stuff. I gave 2 points to Marvel Romance, which hopefully my impassioned plea made you interested in at least looking up the amazing covers. And I gave 1 point to the Marvel's Omnibus. And I will say a lot of these votes came from me being the mapper in chief, along with my amazing team of mapping minties, and also being the list maker who had to verify that the list was ready to go. I probably would not have put this on there. I probably wouldn't have put Marvel Romance, X-Files, or Miracle Man. If I was left up to my own devices, I probably would have had Patsy Walker, I would have had Gen X, I would have had X-Core. But when I saw how uncollected they were and how cool the maps could be, I got convinced. But I think Alpha Flight was always going to be my number one pick. Alpha Flight 2 was, I believe, my number one pick last year. Okay. Well, so glad we made it. We made it. I not only caught up with all of the books that I did not get to talk about last week, but I caught up on my entire ballot. And I've been sitting here talking now in this chair for, I think, 6 hours. I have not eaten or drank. It is now noon in New Zealand. Let me go through a few of your votes or through your comments and see what you said. We had all the people guessing. Freddie saying, darn, no, Millie, you feel betrayed. Patsy Walker's just a slightly higher pedigree for me than Millie. Millie's, I thought Millie was a more serious book, like more like the romance book. It turns out Millie was Marvel basically doing Archie comics. It was like an Archie comics ripoff of them being like, it's Millie the model, like in that silly Archie comics way. I didn't even realize that. Alpha Flight is Canada's premier superhero team. Cruel Angel definitely want to collect that. There were no essentials of the Alpha Flight material. If there were, I would definitely own them. I will buy volume 2 just so we can get this. Next Imaginaut thinks it's a great choice. Jaggernaut saying, hi, Peter, go Team Canuck. I think, you know what? I think the new Warriors epics will happen before the Alpha Flight epics. Marvel pays attention to what's currently coming out. Like we got a Blade epic because Blade has a series. So if they bring Alpha Flight back for a series, we'll get an Alpha Flight epic, but they don't like flinging stuff out into the air without any kind of like creator attached to the marketing, no current series, no MCU appearance, nothing. Then it's really hard to shake stuff out of them. So the best time to strike is when the iron is hot, which the iron is never hot, unfortunately, for Alpha Flight. I would love to see Alpha Flight Omni have 130 as a cover option. Oh yeah, that's a really cool cover. Maybe Marvel makes volume 3 to make Canada and USA relations heal, bringing countries together. It was Cruel Angel's number 8 strict. Kurma, who had so many great comments during the stream, saying thank you for sticking around for the whole stream. David Kirkby chiming in saying great, chiming in. I've lost the power of speech. Chiming in saying great picks. Electric City. I will buy every Alpha Flight Omnibus Marvel is willing to tell me I'm the same. If they put the name Alpha Flight on it, I will buy it. Too much Leafield and Austin, none of Indiana Jones. I'm very interested. You know, I think the thing is, everything I put on this list is a thing I would buy. And for me to buy it, it either needs to be X-Men or it needs to be something that I can own the complete omnibus line of. So you saw a lot of one-off omnibuses that completely collect a character. You saw a lot of single series completely collected. You saw a lot of 2 books like Quasar 1 and 2, right? I think the thing for me is that Indiana Jones is just not, I would gladly read it. I would even buy it in paperback. I'm never going to reread that omnibus. And I generally try to buy omnibuses, not only that follow all those rules, but I know that I will open multiple times. I just don't see me opening. I'm sure it's going to do very well in the poll. It did very well last year, and I think people are even more hyped for it this year. It's just not one that I would personally buy. But then the point I was getting to is I definitely have another like 40 or 50 books that are like, I would very much like to see an omnibus, even if I'm not going to buy them necessarily. Indiana Jones is absolutely on that list. That would be a whole other stream. The books I absolutely think Marvel should print and finally have an omnibus that personally I would be waiting for an epic collection for. Great choices. Thank you so much, Logan Wayne, and thank you for sticking around. No Alf, James, no Alf, but I got X-Files in there. Usually I do not put, X-Files and Buffy were the only 2. I mean, I put Ultra Force, but they're still superhero. Did I put any other Marvel non-superhero IP? I mean, my Romance is non-superhero, but I mean like from other publishers that they acquired via Disney. I think the only ones they put on there is Buffy and X-Files because I'm from the 90s and I like Buffy and N5. Yeah, the real results are going to be happening less than 7 days from right now. We need time to tabulate the results. We need time to build a lovely presentation like this one that is a little bit more consistently proofread than this one. When I do a present, that's the other thing. If I'm going to do streams about collected editions, I also have to like make a visual for you, so I don't have to like just have a big stack next to me. I don't want to just bite Omar's format, but presentations take time, man, to make the format and to like put all the images and find all the pictures. So yeah, no Alf, but love for Alpha Flight, super job. Thank you so much for sticking through all of this. In addition to all of the near mint condition streams, some of you have been with me, hearing me speak for 6 hours right now. Freddie Alonso snuck in Alf to his vote. Logan Wayne's top 3 were Avengers by Stern, Iron Man by Michelini and Leighton Volume 2, and Invincible Iron Man by Denny O'Neil. Mr. Tex, Nightman, and Ultraman are separate characters? I don't know. Jamie C47 finally managed to make it to one of my streams. You know, I try to have my streams at all different times. I know they have so many European and UK watchers. It doesn't always make sense to do a near mint condition stream at that like 3 p.m. time because Omar, you know, it's Omar's job too. Like just like this is part of my job. And Omar tends to want to put streams in US prime time when a lot of people are going to be home and can watch. And if he makes a stream at like 4 o'clock, sometimes our streams end at 4 o'clock, but it's like people on the East Coast are commuting, people on the West Coast are in the middle of their workday. So it's usually on near mint condition. We start a stream either like right around lunchtime or we start a stream right after work on the East Coast. Whereas me, I'll just appear whenever. So I really try. I like getting to talk to my UK friends. I like getting to talk to my friends from Spain, my friends from the Netherlands. So I really like being at this time, even if this time usually doesn't super work on near mint condition. If I had to choose one Spidey Omni for my list, I love Dan Slott Spidey. Honestly, I would maybe go, well, actually the Gauntlet. I love the Gauntlet. I think it's the best single omnibus Spider-Man read other than Stan Lee Volume 1. That said, I love Dan Slott Spider-Man enough that I would consider having it in omnibus. But the thing is, I already have all of it in paperback because I collected all of it in paperback. That's when I was buying complete collections and original release collections. So I don't need to double dip that in omnibus, but I do have the Gauntlet also that I went back and I think I got the Marvel Premiere hardcovers of that, but it's just so readable. So I think I used to have Untold Tales of Spidey. I think I sold it. So yeah, I think the Gauntlet or possibly the Slott books. Quasar was Goosey's number 1 and I'm number 2. I'm number 2. Twinsies, Goosey, Omni Twinsies. I did not watch the Young Indiana show. I remember it, but I didn't really watch it. Richard Fearing, thank you so much. CSI wasn't a Marvel comic title, was it? Well, I don't think it's Disney, is it? Let me tell you, it's much harder for the DC poll to figure out what DC is because Disney, at least you can kind of just go on Disney Plus and see all the stuff. And it's like, well, it's on Disney Plus, it's Disney. WB is like, we've had to do so much research. James Abelline in the Wikipedia, looking at who owns the rights to things. But I said earlier, keep your eye out on this channel, on Near Mint Condition, on Discord, and on Reddit, and on the Marvel Masterworks fan site for the DC poll public consultation. I'm taking a very New Zealand approach to this. In New Zealand, when a bill is potentially going to be voted on for law, after it's introduced in Parliament, it goes to public consultation a lot of times, which enables the public to comment on it in a really comprehensive way. It's not just like a single text box. They'll be like, what do you agree with on this part? What about this part? How do you feel about this change? And they often take all of those comments into account as they continue to craft and change the bill. So I'm taking a Kiwi page out of the Kiwi Politics Notebook book, and we're doing a public consultation on DC Omnibus poll. It's going to start in the next 48 hours, and we're going to put the whole list, none of the maps, because it's a titles poll, not a mapping poll. We're going to put the whole list of titles and say, are there any titles that feel critically missing? Or are there any titles that are totally confusing that people are not going to be able to find the thing that they want? And there's going to be a whole week of public consultation, which is crazy because I'm probably going to have to resolve like 500 comments at the end of that. But I want the DC poll to be as representative as ever. And official word from Tigereyes is that this year's DC poll is going to include Vertigo. So every Vertigo book that has not been in deluxe already, that is over 12 issues long, is on the DC poll. Logan Wayne, thank you for doing this. Well, thank Logan Wayne. I love that you're a regular, and part of what I love about people who regularly show up is it feels like an ongoing conversation. Like I learn about the things you like and the things that you think are funny, and that is fun to me. So thank you for being a part of this and showing up. John Paul's top 5 Marvel votes. Millie at number 1. We love you. Spectacular by Peter David, number 2. Academy X Volume 1, number 3. X-Force Kyle and Yost, number 4. Road to Messiah Complex, number 5. And a shout out, number 9, Jessica Drew, the early years. That was number 62 for me. The Masterworks are so gorgeous. I know the omnibus would be gorgeous, but and it's going to be a big one. I'm so happy with the Masterworks. I open them up all the time, just look through the art. Honestly, I don't even sit and read them necessarily. And so I was like, I would want it and I probably would buy it, but I've got the Masterworks and they're perfect. So it's just not a high priority to me. Who needs sleep when we could talk about collected editions, Georgie Chimdramov? When I get to the bottom of this, I'm done. So you have until you stop talking for me to stop talking. Jaggernaut saying, Crazy Machine, the streaming days like this are proof. Thanks all that I do. And you know what? I've gotten better at the vocal health part. I'm a little hoarse, but I think I'm getting better at the supported part. Angel was such a cool show. Yeah, I mean, I just love the Buffy shows. The Angel comics are really good. IDW put out years and years and years of Angel comic books. Larry, you missed a lot. I think I said nice things about you at some point. Oh, I said how you and me and OmniDog have a X-Files fan club because I put spoilers, well, not spoilers because everybody else heard, but spoilers for you because you haven't seen the whole stream yet. I put X-Files, the top comics, in my top 10. Electric X Alpha's top 3 is Generation X, A Caliber Volume 4, and New Mutants by Wells and Abnex. I'm a person of fine, refined taste. Yeah, I mean, I would obviously buy all 3 of those books on the first stream. I'm trying to catch them on polls. I need to do the posts on Crushing Crisis first because the posts, it's a long story. The posts have to come first. If I don't post about the new releases coming up, I'm not actually going to read them because that's how I make my poll list. So for the weekend, I think I'm going to be mostly focused on catching up on polls. Then whenever I come back, we're going to start from where I left off. I'm not skipping a week. So we might be a couple weeks behind for, who knows, months. But you know what? Books get cheaper in Comixology after a couple weeks, so we'll all save money. If maybe I should always review books a week later, right? Does it matter if I review them on the actual week they come out? Maybe I should always be at like a 1 week lag. I don't know. Like part of me is like, no, people don't care. You got to review the books the week they come out. And then I'm like, moron. So many more people continue to read comics after the first 4 days that they're out. You don't have to always talk about them in the first 4 days. So their pull list is coming back. I just need to make it there. I almost had the same amount of likes for this stream as watchers. That's so cool. I can't see the likes because I'm inside of StreamYard. It's so cool and so kind that Kermai, you will find in the DC poll, Hawkman, I F with Hawkman major. There's like one Hawkman omnibus. We need Silver Age Hawkman. We need Golden Age Hawkman. We need 80s Hawkman. We need Hawk World. I could do an all Hawk ballot, honestly. Hark. All Hark ballot is how bad. He's probably like my number 2 DC character I want to see. Well, let's see. Wonder Woman number 1. Batwoman number 2, but there's only like one more Batwoman omnibus you could do. Yeah, he's definitely my top 5. He might be like my number 2 or number 3 DC character I'm the most interested in. The Dylan UK, definitely love either the Gauntlet or Big Time in Omni. My personal choice is Next Chapter. I haven't seen any collections for that era at a good price. Yeah, some of it's in the Burn omnibus, and then some of it they did Next Chapter trades, but they weren't super comprehensive, and then they kind of just died off, I think, around issue 20, because then I remember the Jenkins part of Next Chapter was not collected for like ages and ages, and I'm looking around because I've got it here somewhere. They finally put out like one book to finally, I think it maybe is this Spider-Man Light in the Darkness. Yeah, this collects Peter Parker Spider-Man 20 to 30 in annual 2000, which was the Peter Parker Spider-Man stuff that was missing, and that's, I think this was what, like 2020 probably. Let's see. When did it get printed? 2019. So it's a relatively new book. But 6 years, right? New. I'm like, I just put it on the shelf. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. It's a new book. It's 6 years old. Okay, the Comic Pals, you missed the whole thing. You missed it. It's over. We're leaving now because you made it. No, Comic Pals very, very graciously invited me to a Pals polls, and it was in the middle of the poll, and I was like, the Pals polls were in the middle of the poll. Say that 5 times fast. And I was like, I am obsessed with you. I want to come on and argue with the pals that I usually don't get to argue with. But we just got to put a pin in it for a couple weeks. So hopefully sometime in May or early in June, I will make it over to I love them. I don't watch a lot of YouTube because honestly, I have to make content. When is there time to watch YouTube if I've got to make all this content? But I will sit down and put Comics Pals on and listen to them in the background while I'm like cooking dinner or in the car. They're one of the few comics channels I seriously am not only a friend of, but am legitimately a fan. They pick good topics. Sometimes I see Comics Pals topics come up on my YouTube. I'm like, God damn it, Sean. Because it's so smart. And it's like something that I want to talk about. I'm like, well, now I can't do a moment of crazy about that, assholes, because you did it. So anyway, I'm going to map the whole DC universe. I beat you to it, John, but I definitely will be interested in your comments on the public consultation for true. Yes, Andrew, Vertigo, baby. It's got every Vertigo book that hasn't been omnibus, but I don't know my Vertigo perfectly. So I did, because it's me, I made a database of every Vertigo book ever, how long it ran, who the creators were. I mean, I already have that in my master database, but I made like a poll of that database so I could kind of look across and see what would wind up at omnibus. But there might be certain combinations of things that I didn't think of, like, oh, hey, Peter, you didn't think of it, but this one creator actually did 8 series that were 4 issues each, but they're known as the, what is 8? The octology of Jesus or whatever. I don't know. So that's why I want to do public consultation. I just think you're going to spot a couple of things that I didn't think of. One Wheelchair X saying thank you. When are we going to do a stream together? Okay. I have a short list of people that I want to hang out with on video. And because I have a channel, I have the power to make that a reality. And if I don't get to do a stream with One Wheelchair X this year, then I don't know what I'm doing. So we need to put our heads together and figure out. He's going to be on an evergreen eventually, but we just don't have any X-Men evergreens upcoming. The next one is Fantastic Four in 2 weeks. Okay. My DC Finest shelf is coming along nicely. Very nice. It's everyone that's coming out. I mean, I might be like 2 weeks behind because I just don't have my newest DCPS shipping yet. But yeah, everyone. And the US dollar got weaker against the New Zealand dollar this week, which usually is bad for me because it means I have less money, but it's good in one way, because I can make bigger DCBS orders and they will still be under the customs limit in New Zealand. So I'm like, yes, I can put more books in my orders now. Okay. And I'm a Buffy fan. Yes, but oh, wow. Okay. So maybe we could get together and talk Buffy at some point. But how do you feel about X-Files? JJ70, do the week lag so people can read and comment with me. I'll consider. I mean, you know what? These first couple are going to be almost at a month lag by the time we do them. So we'll see. If more people have caught up, especially at a month, at the point that it's a month behind, it'll be on DC Unlimited. And books get so much cheaper. I had to buy an issue of Power Fantasy. It's a long story, but I bought the same thing digitally again. I don't want to get into it. But I realized they go down. They get 50% off in like 2 weeks. So if I had a lag, I would save so much time and money. Yeah. Darn Paul says, so excited for the DC poll. Yeah. And the thing is, I just don't know DC as well as I know Marvel. I got that huge, where is it? It's in this room somewhere. Hold on. I'm going to go off camera. I've got this and I was thinking I might start. Oh no, this is the Marvel. Damn it. This is the Marvel book. The DC book's in the other room. So this is the Marvel. Oh my God. I can't even hold it up. This is the Marvel. This makes me look so petite. It's so big. This is the Marvel Taschen book in its own carrying case because it's so huge. And I found this in New Zealand. I found somebody in New Zealand who had a copy of it. In fact, I might have 2 copies of it actually. But there is a DC book that's almost that big. It's in my bookshelf in the bedroom because it was the only bookshelf I could fit it on. But it's I bought it because I thought it was going to be more of a history book, but it's actually more of an art book. But I still think I would gain a lot from you. Oh, while we're talking about this, hold on. I'm going to step off camera again. I know. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. I just have to literally reach outside of this door. Here we go. So I have this book. I think I got this for Christmas. I got this for Christmas in 1992. I've long since lost the dust cover. Actually, I'm also losing the hardcover. I can just slide it off like a slipcase because it's almost totally separated. But I've had this for a long, long time, and I've read it so many times. It is the First 40 Years of Marvel History by Lee Daniels. And this is the way that I know all of the things I know about Marvel is because I have this book committed to memory. So many of the anecdotes, that I tell about Marvel, I know because of this book. I also then read the Untold History of Marvel Comics and some other stuff, but this was like Marvel's officially sanctioned history that only had the glossy fun parts of their history. It didn't say anything truly horrible, but it really explains why they published what they published during the first 40 years of Marvel. And so actually maybe it was 50, but anyway, I remember asking for it and wanting it. And I think I finally got it for my birthday or for Christmas in 1992. And I would stay up every night and read it. And then ultimately I did a project in a history class that was all about the Seduction of the Innocent by Frederick Wertham. And I used that book as one of my sources. And I actually went to the public library in Philadelphia and I got out an actual copy of Seduction of the Innocent, which would now it's been reprinted for academic purposes. At the time, like maybe if you lived in a big city, there was a copy in your central library, and there was. And so that was the beginning of my interest in comics as like not only an art form, but a historical art form of the history of pop culture. Right. And so I love that book. And I've always wanted to read a similar book of DC. So if you have favorite books of DC, it's been through a lot, folks. if you have a similar favorite book of DC history that you have and you love, let me know, because I would love to pick it up. I have a lot of books about Wonder Woman, but then I also have the DC Taschen book, which is gigantic. And then I would love to find more books about DC's history so I can learn more. Okay, but that gave you way too much time to catch up and you kept talking. Jamie, always behind in reading polls. So yeah, okay, so it sounds like people are not that opposed to a delayed discussion. Hawkworld Omni would be a big win, and we definitely improved the map this year. I think last year was missing something. Again, the title is all that matters, but I think we did make the map better. I can actually move this tab back to my main screen so I don't have to keep turning my head because I'm going to get a crick in my neck from all this turning back and forth to read your comments. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Excited for the DC poll. Me too. Yeah, and that's the thing that I love about it. Like I'm Crushing Crisis. Like I have all this stuff. It's all on my website. I've teased this, I think last week on the stream. In my dream, I have crushingcomics.com registered. I would love it to be sort of like a comics.org League of Comic Geeks companion, where basically you can look up any series and figure out which complete guide it's in. Because my view of how to think about the worlds of comics is I just think it's weird to be like, oh, I'm going to only look at this one volume, right? This like one volume of Spider-Man. I'm only going to look at this one volume of X-Men. Comics exist in a hypertext world where they're in conversation with each other. So I think personally, the way that my brain works, no database of comics can ever be complete if it's only looking series by series, volume by volume, issue by issue. I think that to have a really compelling look at a comic, you have to look at as a category. You have to look at a character. You have to look at an author. You have to look at a publisher. You have to look at an era. You have to look at one of those things. And so I would just love basically a lookup that has a complete database of every Marvel comic book or DC comic book ever, and Image and Dark Horse eventually. And that basically would say, hey, if you want to take the 10,000 foot view of this book, you want to go to the Hawkman guide. You want to go to the X-Men in the 90s guide. You want to go to blah. I just think that would be really cool. And that's how my brain works. If I had infinite time, if my Patreon made 2 or 3 times the amount of money, I could do that. But I say all that to say, that's why I love these polls, because these polls are kind of the birth of that. Like I am using my existing database in the background to fuel these polls. And when I realize I've missed stuff and people point them out in the polls, I'm like, ooh, why was that not in the database? Or was it in the database and I didn't understand what it was? And so for me, this is a hugely profitable historical exercise because it's helping me enrich the data. And that data is what drives my reading orders. It's what drives Crushing Crisis. It even to a degree drives my poll list because I kind of like understand what vein of things each new comic is a part of. And sometimes one comic can be a part of multiple veins of things. So yeah, I'm very excited for the DC poll. I learned a lot. I'm just not the expert in DC that I am in Marvel. So I learned a lot last year. I'm sure I will learn a lot this year as well. Okay. Karma, you are a gem. I've loved your comments on the stream so much. I hope we see you more on the channel. Super Chop has got to bully you when they wake up to have your own profile picture, though. We love a profile picture. But I'm happy to see your name. Either way, Comics Pals and James Abel are in a deep conversation about X-Files and Fringe. What period of Spider-Man is the Gauntlet from? The Gauntlet fits in between JMS and Slott. It's actually, the Gauntlet is just one story, and then there's stuff after that, like Grim Hunt. But it's kind of used broadly to refer to everything that connects JMS to Slott. So what is that, like 2008? Ish? I don't know. Spider-Man, I never can keep track of the years. Like when people are like, Slott didn't start big time until like 2009 or 2010. I'm like, what? Because JMS wrote for so long, but like I have a lot of trouble remembering all that. Spoil the top 10. I don't know. I truly don't know. Jim, I should say. Jim sets it up so it tracks the votes as we go, but it's not like in number format. It's just so we can see if anything gets weird. Like if somehow all of a sudden, like there's one line that has like 20,000 points, like that would be unusual because there's not that many points in the poll. It means the poll would like get hacked. So I don't actually look at how the titles perform. I literally just look at like, okay, the number 1 book has about 2,000 points. I don't know. Don't quote me. And the number 60 book has about 400 points. Like I kind of just look at it broadly like that. So I couldn't even spoil it. And I'd have to, it's ended since we've been on stream. So I fundamentally cannot spoil it. Okay. Comics Bell saying, thank you so much for the kind words, Crushing Crisis. I'm absolutely obsessed with you, but I have to put that on hold until Tigereyes poll closes. Yeah, there's a mutual obsession society between me, primarily me and Sean, but really me and the other comic pals just don't know it yet. I'm going to get on the stream and tell them how obsessed I am with them. So that's going to happen. Yeah, there was that 1 second there that all the talking caught up with me. But you got to deliver it from the diaphragm. Okay, let's see. I should do a Patreon stream for maybe that's what the Patreon stream could be. I have not been posting on Patreon, even though I've been making so much Patreon content on Crushing Crisis. I need to get on it, but there's only so many hours in the day. But yeah, anyway, that's a good idea. We're going to put a pin on that. Okay. One Wheelchair saying, yes, we absolutely should stream. Okay, almost at the bottom. I'm almost at the bottom. I don't know DC well either, so the only new books I'm ready to vote for: Supergirl by Peter David and Man of Steel by John Byrne. Absolutely both on the poll. I don't think I ever read all of Seduction of the Innocent because you think that book was falling apart. I think I had to wear librarian supplied gloves to read Seduction of the Innocent because it was like even in the 90s, it was a 40+ year old book. So I don't think I've ever read it. They reissued it and I missed buying the reissue and then it got expensive. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend $60 to own this book about this asshole that was trying to ruin comics for everybody. But I do still have an academic interest in it. DC Finest. Yeah, DC Finest has really hyped me. I mean, I know we're going to get burnt because it's just DC and they'll always burn us in the end. But DC Finest has made me very excited for DC again. How does my brain process and remember so many writers, artists, inkers, editors? Well, three things. One, I think I've said multiple times, I remember things by writing it down. So I think often because I write a note about every comic I read, it just gets ingrained that way. So that's one. Two is I have a terrible memory for plot. Like when it's funny because people think I'm so good at continuity, but I'm good at continuity from a very like put these Lego pieces together to form a house kind of way. Like, oh, this one comes before that one. When people are like, oh, but that's when the Negabands had the dark reflection of the Negabands. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because I don't remember that stuff really well. So I think that's part of it, that I do have a little bit of like a Swiss cheese brain for some plot details. And then I think the third part of it is that I don't know. I had 3 parts and now there's only 2. I had somebody, I don't like to think of comic books as being fully formed. I'm like this about movies, TV, everything. I like to think about what brain created this. So when I read something I really, really dig, I always look at the credits page. I've been like that ever since I was a little tiny kid. Like even as like 6 years old, I would always look to the credits page. It's how I've always been. So I think I like seek out that information really deliberately. And I think that helps me remember it in ways that other people do not. Do you know, one of the things I always wanted to do in the States was teach a college class. I have a whole box of books that I bought that were going to be the college class that I was going to teach, which was going to be the history of communication. And I could give you the whole pitch. It's for another stream. This is really long already. But and I actually got to teach a couple times at my alma mater, Drexel University, filling in for some friends who were instructors there who needed, like a day off. So I taught a couple times there. I think if I stayed in Philly, I probably would have tried to become an adjunct professor at Drexel. Communications and media is my great love of life, other than, my family and comic books, which are communications and media. But the thing is, I don't know anything about college here. Like they do papers. People, in the States, you're like, oh, how many credits did you take? In New Zealand, they're like, oh, how many papers do you have this term? So I've never been to a New Zealand college. I've never been to school in New Zealand. So it's like, I don't know if I could credibly be a teacher in New Zealand because I truly do not understand how it works. But that I would love. Larry's Library, another person who I need to stream with Word. Just finished Jack Kirby book by Tom Scioli. I loved way more than I thought I would. Was surprised there was so much info in there about him that I didn't already know. I'm going to star that so I remember to look that up and see if I can get it here. You've been watching me since I found me unwrapping my collection when I got to New Zealand. Freddie Lawns, I think that Gauntlet is the transition between Brand New Day and Big Time. Has Marvel ever reached the Crushing Crisis website to come? No, we know a lot of the people who work on Marvel collections are freelancers. It's not like they have somebody like me. I mean, they couldn't have my hair, but somebody like me chained to a desk in in Marvel headquarters doing this. Like all of those people, even Corey, who does the Masterworks, I don't think he's a salaried employee. I think they're all like contract employees. So if you look in some of these collections, you will see that there's like a collections editor. Probably the overall collections editor works like actually for Marvel. I need my glasses. But then sometimes they'll like have special credit to, or like collection assistant editor. And those people don't necessarily work full-time for Marvel. They're people that they like have that. So this one, collection editor Corey Seldmeyer, because Dazzler had Masterworks, so he's the collection editor. Book design Nickel Design Works. VP of production special projects Jeff Youngquist. SVP of sales and marketing David Gabriel. Editor-in-chief CB Saluski. But this one makes sense because they already had it all in Masterworks. But if you were to look at some omnibuses that are not in Masterworks already, sometimes they credit other people. And my whole point is, you don't have to work for Marvel to be one of those people. So this collection editor, Daniel Kirchhoffer, I don't know if he's a full-time Marvel employee. I don't know. So anyway, point being is a lot of these people are just out in the world. They're people that are like watching these YouTube shows. One of the people who watches Near Mint Condition is the letterer who like preps files digitally to go onto Comixology when they're the letterer for things like Conan and things from DC. So like these people, you know, are all in our community. And so some of them absolutely have been on Crushing Crisis, and many of them have known who I am and talked to me in forums, and I probably haven't even realized. And I would absolutely love to work with Marvel. But I've always been like this. I blame being a fan of Ani DeFranco in the 90s. I'm so strident in my opinions that I will not bite my tongue and only say nice things about Marvel in the hopes of working with Marvel. My brain just doesn't do that. So like, I'm always going to critique Marvel books. And it makes it tricky to go on to Omar's stream because Omar, you know, Marvel, David Gabriel personally sends him that catalog. And I don't want to go on and like shit on Marvel, but like I will say negative things about Marvel, and Omar appreciates that I do that. But I just don't know if Marvel would ever want to like work with, like I might be a liability. Like, do they want that crazy person who says bad things about how all of the Marvel comics right now suck editing their books? Probably not. But I would love to. Oh my gosh, you keep talking, so I keep answering things. What comics characters do I think Marvel should push a Disney Plus show on that will work very well? New Warriors. They had a pilot in the can and they didn't move forward with it. They need to, there are so many smaller characters that could be lower budget series that they could just do endless episodes. They're so obsessed with these like 8 episode series that are as good as a movie and the production quality of a movie. No, F that. Have Squirrel Girl with like a big stuffed tail behind her running around. Like do something cheap that you can produce a lot of that's funny, that's like fun to watch, that you would never make a movie of. That's what I think they need to do on Disney Plus. Freddie Alonso has been offered to teach, but because it's a 2 to 3 weekend course, they wanted me to pass everyone, even people that didn't show up once. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think my ethics often get in the way of my success. So careful what you wish for, because then you'll have to turn it down and think about it even more. Okay. And I made it to the bottom. Have they made a collected edition of Exiles yet? Yes. Their Exiles has been completely collected. I think, I have an Exiles guide and it's public, so we can just go look on Crushing Crisis, but they have completely collected Exiles in complete collections of some kind, I want to say. And, but it's a little tricky to collect because then when it goes into new Exiles, I don't think they've recollected that. So yeah, the main Exiles has been collected in Exiles Ultimate Collection, books 1 through 5, but that was in actually 1 through 6, but that was in 2010. So good luck finding those. Then it goes to new Exiles, and they have never recollected new Exiles. So that's part of why I think people really want them in omnibuses. Those 2010 books are notoriously hard to find, and they're 15 years old at this point. And the new Exiles stuff has never been completely collected. The fact that they had the genius Milana Vaintrub lined up for Squirrel Girl, it bothers me so much. It was perfect. They should have just bit the bullet and did like a one shot while they had her. It was just so perfect. I don't understand why they didn't do it. If Dorian Green plays Squirrel Girl, I'm so in. And finally, that's why I like She-Hulk. I love She-Hulk. I think She-Hulk was the most successful Marvel show. I think it's absolutely insane that anybody would complain about it. Is literally the She-Hulk comic brought to life. What is there to complain about there? Yeah, I think it's Marvel's best show. I think it was fantastic. It's the first Marvel thing they've maybe ever made that completely captures the vibe of the comic book that inspired it. I absolutely loved it. Folks, that's the last comment. I'm not playing a song. It's not pull list. Songs only happen on pull lists. So thank you so much for those of you who've been here for any part of this, for all of this, who've been here for me completing the picture from last week, which I only did because so many of you commented that you couldn't believe that I left you hanging at Spider-Man. So thank you for that. Thank you for people who stayed all through my poll choices. I know it was a lot of X-Men, but surprise, there was no X-Men in the top 10. I bet you didn't guess that. And thank you to everybody who voted in the poll to make it such a huge success. Maybe I can real quick bring up the file to tell you the total number of votes. Now, keep in mind, James will need to do, or James, I keep saying James. We call him Jim because there's James Abel and then there's Jim. Jim will need to do his pass on this to get to like find like if people's votes fired multiple times by mistake, like that's a thing. But if I, oh boy, if I just go to the bottom, this will be my one sneaky little bit of insider information. Oh my gosh, so many people voted today. We almost got to 2,800 votes. So even after we knock out duplicates, I think we'll have well over 2,700, which is more than 1,000 votes more than last year. Amazing. So thank you so much for voting. And that's it. This has been 3 hours. Maybe I'll be back on Sunday. I don't know. It depends on when I'm caught up on my poll list. But I will continue to try to have at least one stream a week. And I will continue to try to be here on YouTube to please you. But next week, in case I don't do my own stream, so I can't remind you, I'm going to be on OmniDog's Vault on Tuesday evening for our monthly Jamming on Comics with OmniDog and Freddy. No, I don't think we've picked the topic yet. And I'll be back on Near Mint Condition next Thursday, a week from now, exactly, to talk about the official 60 results of the Tigereyes 13th annual Marvel Most Wanted Omnibus poll. Until then, don't have a crisis unless, of course, it's me. Take care, everybody, and be well in the world.